The Galactic Council chamber erupts in chaos as Christian Hill strides through the massive doors, a snarling beast at his side. Alien representatives scramble back, their voices rising in a cacophony of shock and fear. The human diplomat stands tall, unfazed by the commotion surrounding him. His hand grips a leash, tethered to the most feared predator in the known universe, the Vorax. Towering over Christian, the Vorax's muscular frame ripples with barely contained power. Its obsidian scales glint under the chamber's harsh lights, rows of dagger-like teeth visible as it snaps at the air. Claws that could shred titanium click against the polished floor. This apex predator, responsible for decimating entire worlds, now walks obediently beside a mere human. Ambassador Stella of the Brunali delegation rises, her violet skin pale with disbelief. Her people have suffered centuries of Vorax attacks, their homeworld ravaged by these unstoppable killing machines. She watches, mandibles twitching, as Christian calmly leads the beast to the center of the chamber. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Christian's voice rings out, silencing the uproar. I stand before you today to demonstrate humanity's latest achievement. We have succeeded where others have failed. We can control the Vorax. A wave of murmurs sweeps through the chamber. Christian raises his hand, and the Vorax immediately sits, its spiked tail curling around massive haunches. The human's next command sends the creature rolling onto its back, exposing a vulnerable underbelly. Gasps echo as Christian scratches the Vorax's throat, eliciting a rumbling purr that vibrates through the floor. Ambassador Stella slams her fist on the podium. Impossible! This must be a trick. How can you possibly control such a beast? Christian's lips curl into a smile. Through the power of human ingenuity, Ambassador, we've developed a neural interface that allows direct communication with the Vorax's primitive mind. This breakthrough could solve the galaxy's Vorax problem once and for all. The chamber falls silent as the implications sink in. Christian continues, his voice firm. But this solution comes with a condition. Humanity demands full membership in the Galactic Council. Chaos erupts once more. Council members argue vehemently, their voices rising in a crescendo of support and opposition. The Brunali delegation remains torn, their fear of the Vorax warring with deep-seated distrust of humans. Suddenly, the chamber doors burst open. A group of alien protesters storm in, their angry shouts drowning out the council's debate. Down with human interference! The galaxy belongs to us! In the ensuing pandemonium, a protester lunges towards Christian. Their outstretched hand connects with the neural interface device on his temple. A sickening crack echoes through the chamber as the device shatters. The Vorax's eyes snap open, no longer docile. It rises to its full height, muscles coiling as it prepares to strike. A deafening roar shakes the very foundations of the building. Council members scatter in panic as the beast lunges towards the nearest alien dignitary. Christian stands his ground, facing the now uncontrolled Vorax. The fate of Earth's galactic standing hangs in the balance. Without technology to aid him, he must now prove humanity's worth by subduing the galaxy's most lethal predator, using nothing but his wits and courage. Christian's mind raced as he faced the uncontrolled Vorax, its piercing roar still echoing through the chamber. In a split second, he assessed the situation, his training kicking in as adrenaline surged through his body. The Vorax's eyes locked onto Ambassador Stella, its massive frame coiling to strike. Without hesitation, Christian launched himself forward, positioning his body between the beast and the Brunali diplomat. "Ambassador, stay back!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the panicked screams filling the chamber. The Vorax's claws tore through Christian's formal attire, leaving angry red gashes across his chest and arms. He gritted his teeth against the pain, using his forearms to deflect the creature's snapping jaws from his face. "Easy, girl," Christian said, his voice low and steady despite the creature's hot breath on his skin. He maintained unwavering eye contact with the Vorax, refusing to show fear. The beast paused, its primordial brain struggling to process this prey that neither fled nor fought back. Christian seized the moment, his right hand inching towards his pocket. "That's it," he murmured, his left hand raised in a calming gesture. You remember me, don't you? In one fluid motion, Christian pulled out a small device from his pocket. The Vorax's eyes widened, recognizing the object. Before it could react, Christian pressed the backup neural interface against the creature's neck. A low hum filled the air as the device activated. The Vorax's muscles relaxed, its aggressive stance melting away. Christian exhaled slowly, feeling the tension drain from his own body. "Stand down," he commanded, and the Vorax obediently sat, its tail curling around its haunches. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices. Some council members cheered, while others demanded explanations. Ambassador Stella approached Christian, her violet skin still pale from the close call. "How?" she asked, mandibles twitching in agitation. "Your technology failed. We all saw it." Christian winced as he straightened up, the adrenaline fading and bringing his injuries into sharp focus. "Not failed, Ambassador. The primary interface was designed with a deliberate vulnerability." Murmurs of confusion spread through the chamber. Christian continued, his voice carrying despite his labored breathing. "We anticipated potential sabotage attempts. The backup interface is far more robust and well hidden." Before Stella could respond, a new voice boomed across the chamber. "An impressive display, human, but also a reckless one." Christian turned to see a towering figure approaching. The alien's battle-scarred exoskeleton and ceremonial armor marked him as a high-ranking military official. "General Zarkon of the militant hegemony," the newcomer introduced himself, his compound eyes fixed on Christian. "Your bravery is commendable, but bringing such a creature here, it raises questions." Christian met the general's gaze unflinchingly. "With respect, General, sometimes the greatest risks yield the greatest rewards. The Vorax problem has plagued this galaxy for centuries. We're offering a solution." Zarkon's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but at what cost?" Before Christian could respond, commotion erupted near the chamber entrance. Council security forces dragged in a group of aliens, the protesters responsible for the sabotage attempt. "Let me go!" a female voice rang out. The leader of the group, an alien with iridescent scales and 4 arms, struggled against her captors. "Humans have no place here. They'll upset everything." Christian recognized her as Lyrax, a notorious anti-human activist. She locked eyes with him, her gaze burning with hatred. "You see," Lyrax shouted to the council, "they bring monsters into our sacred halls. What's next? Will they unleash these beasts on our worlds, claiming to help us?" Her words sent a ripple of unease through the assembled diplomats. Christian realized that his demonstration, while impressive, had also stoked fears of human unpredictability and power. The head of the council, a wizened Altarian with gossamer wings, raised his hands for silence. "We will recess to discuss these unprecedented events. Ambassador Hill, please see to your injuries. We will reconvene in 2 hours." As the chamber began to clear, Christian's mind whirled. He had proven humanity's ability to control the Vorax, but at what cost? The political landscape had shifted, with new allies and enemies emerging from the chaos. He made his way to a small medical bay adjacent to the chamber, wincing as a medical droid began treating his wounds. Christian knew the real challenge lay ahead. He had to convince the council that humanity's inclusion would benefit the galaxy as a whole, not just in controlling the Vorax. As the droid finished its work, Christian began formulating his strategy. He had 2 hours to prepare for the most important diplomatic engagement of his career, and possibly the future of humanity in the galaxy. Christian Hill straightened his uniform, wincing slightly as the fabric brushed against his freshly treated wounds. The medical droid had done an admirable job, but the memory of the Vorax's claws tearing through his flesh remained vivid. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the council reconvening. As he entered the chamber, Christian felt the weight of countless alien eyes upon him. The Vorax padded along at his side, docile once more. The beast's presence, once a source of terror, now served as a testament to humanity's potential. Ambassador Stella rose, her violet skin still pale from her earlier brush with death. Her voice quavered as she addressed the council, recounting the harrowing moment when the Vorax had nearly claimed her life. Christian stood tall, his face impassive as she spoke of his bravery, while simultaneously emphasizing the dangers his actions had unleashed. As Stella concluded her testimony, General Zarkon stepped forward, his battle-scarred exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights. "Esteemed council members," he began, his compound eyes fixed on Christian, "I propose a true test of the human's abilities." The chamber fell silent as Zarkon described the plight of Nexus Prime, a remote mining colony plagued by Vorax attacks. "If Ambassador Hill and his people can truly control these beasts, let them prove it where it matters most." Murmurs of agreement and dissent rippled through the assembly. Christian's mind raced, weighing the risks and potential rewards of such a mission. Before he could voice his thoughts, the chamber doors slid open, admitting a stern-faced human man in his 50s. Dr. Elias Vance, Earth's foremost xenobiologist, strode purposefully towards Christian. His weathered face bore the lines of countless sleepless nights spent unraveling the mysteries of alien biology. He leaned in close, his voice low and urgent. "Christian, we have a problem," Vance whispered, his eyes darting to the Vorax. "The backup interface is destabilizing. We need to act fast." Christian's blood ran cold. The beast beside him, seemingly tame, could revert to its savage nature at any moment. He opened his mouth to alert the council, but Vance's hand on his arm stopped him. "Wait," the scientist cautioned. "If we reveal this now, we lose everything. I can stabilize it, but I need time." Christian nodded imperceptibly, his decision made. He stepped forward, addressing the council with unwavering confidence. "Esteemed members, I accept General Zarkon's challenge. Give us one standard galactic month, and we will demonstrate humanity's worth on Nexus Prime." The council erupted into debate. Christian stood firm as arguments flew back and forth, his mind already racing ahead to the preparations needed for such a mission. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, the council reached its decision. "Very well, Ambassador Hill," the Altarian council head announced, his gossamer wings shimmering. "You have 1 month. Succeed, and humanity will have earned its place among us. Fail, and your species will be permanently barred from council membership." As the chamber began to clear, Christian wasted no time. He conferred quietly with Dr. Vance, outlining their immediate needs. "We'll need a pilot," Christian mused, "someone who can navigate the treacherous space around Nexus Prime." "I know just the person," Vance replied. "Captain Marcus Steele. He's unconventional, but there's no one better at the helm of a starship." Christian nodded. "Good. We'll also need an expert in xeno-environments. This mission will take us into unknown territory." "Lieutenant Daria Chen," Vance suggested. "She's written extensively on adapting to alien ecosystems. She'll be invaluable on Nexus Prime." As they discussed logistics, neither man noticed the commotion near the chamber's holding cells. Lyrax, the anti-human protester, slipped away from her distracted guards. Her lithe form blended into the shadows as she tapped out a coded message on a concealed device. Aboard the HSS Horizont, Christian's hastily assembled team worked feverishly to prepare for their departure. Captain Steele's fingers danced across the ship's controls, his roguish grin belying the intensity of his focus. Lieutenant Chen pored over data on Nexus Prime's harsh environment, her brow furrowed in concentration. Dr. Vance hunched over a workbench, his hands steady as he made minute adjustments to the Vorax neural interface. Christian paced the length of the ship, his mind whirling with plans and contingencies. As the Horizont's engines hummed to life, Christian made his way to the ship's communication array. He squared his shoulders, composing himself before addressing the Galactic Council one final time. "Esteemed members," he began, his voice firm and resolute, "we embark on this mission not just for humanity's sake, but for the good of all galactic citizens. The Vorax threat has plagued our shared stars for too long. Together, we will forge a new path forward." The Horizont lifted off smoothly, leaving the space station behind. As they accelerated towards their destiny on Nexus Prime, none aboard noticed the sleek, cloaked ship that detached from the station's shadow, falling into silent pursuit. Inside the cloaked vessel, a diverse crew of alien mercenaries checked their weapons and equipment. Their employer's instructions were clear. The humans must fail at any cost. As both ships hurtled through the void, The stage was set for a conflict that would determine the fate of humanity's place among the stars. Stars. The Horizont accelerated smoothly, leaving the space station behind and venturing into the vast expanse of space. Captain Marcus Steele's fingers danced across the ship's control panel, his eyes darting between holographic readouts and the viewport. "Course plotted for Nexus Prime," he announced, his voice carrying a hint of excitement. "Estimated travel time, 4 standard galactic days." Christian nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars streaking by. "Good. We need every moment we can get." The ship's peaceful hum was suddenly interrupted by a shrill alarm. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow. "Asteroid field dead ahead," Steele shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "It's not on any of our charts." Christian gripped the nearest console as the ship lurched to avoid a massive chunk of space rock. "How is this possible?" Lieutenant Daria Chen, hunched over the sensor array, shook her head in disbelief. "Unknown, sir. The field just, appeared." The Horizont weaved through the deadly maze of asteroids, each near miss eliciting gasps from the crew. Steele's face was a mask of concentration, sweat beading on his forehead as he executed a series of complex maneuvers. "Hold on!" he yelled as the ship barrel-rolled between 2 colliding asteroids. In the cargo hold, the Vorax let out a bone-chilling roar. Dr. Vance's voice crackled over the intercom, panic evident in his tone. "The neural interface is destabilizing. I can't hold it." Christian sprinted towards the cargo hold, his heart pounding. He burst through the door to find the Vorax thrashing against its restraints, eyes wild with primordial fury. Dr. Vance hunched over a sparking control panel, desperately trying to stabilize the interface. "Easy, girl," Christian said, forcing his voice to remain calm despite the ship's violent movements. He approached the Vorax slowly, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Remember me? We're friends, remember?" The beast's eyes locked onto Christian, its snarls diminishing slightly. Christian inched closer, speaking in low, soothing tones. Dr. Vance worked feverishly in the background, muttering equations and adjustments under his breath. A particularly violent jolt sent Christian stumbling. The Vorax lunged, its jaws snapping inches from his face. Christian held his ground, maintaining eye contact. "That's it. Focus on me. You're safe." Gradually, the Vorax's aggressive posture relaxed. Dr. Vance let out a relieved sigh as the interface stabilized. "It's holding for now," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. The ship gave one final lurch, then steadied. Captain Steele's triumphant voice came over the intercom. "We're clear. Asteroid field behind us." Christian sagged against the wall, the adrenaline rush fading. "Nice work, everyone," he said, his voice hoarse. "But we're not out of the woods yet." As if on cue, Lieutenant Chen's voice cut through the momentary calm. "Sir, we've got company. Cloaked vessel on our 6." Christian rushed back to the bridge, Dr. Vance close behind. Chen's fingers flew over her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm using our prototype stealth detection system. It's there. Zorn-class interceptor, commonly used by Outer Rim mercenaries." "Options?" Christian asked, his mind racing. Captain Steele spoke up, a roguish grin on his face despite the tension. "I've got an idea, but you're not going to like it. There's a research outpost not far from here. Sigma 9. We could make a pit stop, throw off our tail." Christian weighed the risks. They were already on a tight schedule, but the unstable neural interface and the pursuing ship posed immediate threats. "Do it," he ordered. "Set course for Outpost Sigma 9. The Horizont changed course, its engines humming with renewed purpose. As they approached the remote research station, Christian couldn't shake the feeling that their mission had just become far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. Outpost Sigma 9 grew larger in the view screen, a gleaming beacon of human ingenuity amidst the void of space. As they docked, Christian turned to his team. "Dr. Vance, prioritize stabilizing that interface. Lieutenant Chen, see what you can do about upgrading our stealth detection capabilities. Captain Steele, run a full diagnostic on the ship. I want us ready to leave at a moment's notice." The team dispersed, each focused on their tasks. Christian made his way to the outpost's main laboratory, where he was greeted by a stern-faced woman with piercing dark eyes. Ambassador Hill, she said, extending her hand. I'm Dr. Kira Nomura, lead xenobiologist here at Sigma 9. I understand you have a rather unique problem on your hands. Christian nodded, relief washing over him. Dr. Nomura, your reputation precedes you. We could use your expertise. As they walked towards the horizon, Christian filled her in on the details of their mission and the challenges they faced. Dr. Nomura listened intently, her mind already formulating solutions. I've studied Vorax behavior extensively, she said as they entered the cargo hold. With your permission, I'd like to join your mission to Nexus Prime. I believe I can help stabilize the neural interface and potentially improve its effectiveness. Christian didn't hesitate. Welcome aboard, Doctor. As Dr. Nomura and Dr. Vance huddled over the neural interface, making rapid modifications and improvements, Christian's communicator buzzed. An encrypted message from Earth scrolled across the screen, causing his blood to run cold. Team, he called out, his voice tight. We have a new complication. Lyrax, the alien protester who escaped after the council meeting, has been tracked to a location near Nexus Prime. This goes deeper than we thought. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the intercom. Ambassador, we've got trouble. Our pursuers caught up with us. Christian raced to the bridge, arriving just as a menacing ship decloaked before them. Its sleek, predatory design left no doubt about its purpose. A gruff voice came over the communications channel. HSS Horizon, this is Captain Zarks of the Silent Blade. Abandon your mission and surrender all Vorax-related technology or face the consequences. Christian's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't afford a direct confrontation, not with so much at stake. He nodded to Captain Steele, who understood immediately. Hold tight, everyone, Steele announced, his hands flying over the controls. This is going to get bumpy. The Horizon's engines roared to life, catapulting the ship away from the outpost. The Silent Blade gave chase, weapons charging. There's a nebula nearby, Steele shouted over the ship's groaning hull. Heavy radiation, electromagnetic interference. It's our best shot. Christian gripped his seat as the Horizon plunged into the swirling gases of the nebula. Arcs of energy crackled across the view screen, systems flickering under the strain. Shields holding at 60%, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice tense. The Silent Blade is falling behind. They can't handle the interference. For agonizing minutes, the Horizon pushed deeper into the cosmic storm. Warning klaxons blared as systems failed one by one. Just when it seemed the ship couldn't take any more, they burst through the other side of the nebula. We've lost them, Steele announced, his voice filled with relief and pride. But we've taken some damage. We'll need to make repairs before we hit Nexus Prime. As the crew worked to bring systems back online, Christian stared out at the stars. They had overcome the immediate threat, but at a cost. Their delay meant they now had less than 3 weeks to reach Nexus Prime and prove humanity's worth. The ship's long-range scanners beeped, drawing everyone's attention. Lieutenant Chen frowned as she studied the readouts. Sir, I'm picking up strange activity on Nexus Prime. The Vorax. They're gathering in unprecedented numbers near the mining colonies. Christian felt the weight of their mission pressing down on him. They had faced asteroids, saboteurs, and mercenaries, but the true test still lay ahead. As Nexus Prime loomed in the distance, he knew that the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy would be decided in the crucible of that harsh alien world. Christian turned to his team, his expression grim but determined. We're out of time, he said. Set course for Nexus Prime. Maximum speed. The Horizon surged forward, its engines pushing to their limits as they approached the turbulent atmosphere of Nexus Prime. As they entered the planet's airspace, the ship began to shake violently. Encountering severe electromagnetic disturbances, Captain Steele shouted over the din of alarms and creaking metal. His hands flew across the controls, making split-second adjustments. This isn't natural turbulence. The view screen filled with swirling, angry clouds tinged with an eerie green glow. Lightning crackled around the ship, creating a dazzling but terrifying light show. Shields down to 30%, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice strained. We can't take much more of this. Christian gripped his seat, fist clenched. Steele, can you get us through? The captain's face was a mask of concentration. Hold on to something. The Horizont plunged through the roiling atmosphere, bucking and groaning under the strain. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the ship might be torn apart. Then, with a final violent lurch, they broke through the cloud cover. A barren, rocky landscape stretched out below them, punctuated by steaming geysers spewing acidic vapor into the air. In the distance, barely visible through the toxic haze, sat the squat, fortified structures of the mining colony. There, Christian pointed. Set us down on the outskirts. Steele guided the ship to a rough but successful landing on a relatively flat expanse of rock. As the engines powered down, an eerie silence fell over the crew. Everyone into enviro suits, Christian ordered. Full decontamination protocols. We don't know what's in that air. The team donned their protective gear, each suit hissing as it pressurized. Christian led the way down the boarding ramp, his boots crunching on the alien soil. The landscape was even more forbidding up close. Jagged rock formations jutted from the ground like the teeth of some prehistoric beast. The air shimmered with heat, distorting the horizon. Every few minutes, a nearby geyser would erupt, sending a plume of noxious gas into the sky. Life signs? Christian asked, his voice slightly muffled by his helmet. Dr. Nomura consulted her handheld scanner. Faint readings from the direction of the colony, but there's a lot of interference. They had taken only a few steps toward the distant structures when movement caught their eye. A group of figures was racing toward them, their gait uneven on the treacherous terrain. Colonists? Lieutenant Chen asked, her hand hovering near her weapon. As the figures drew closer, their panicked shouts became audible through the team's external microphones. They were human miners, their faces visible through scratched and hastily donned breath masks. The lead miner, a burly man with a salt and pepper beard, stumbled to a halt in front of Christian. "You've got to help us," he gasped, his eyes wild with fear. "I'm Foreman Jack Harker, the Vorax. They've gone mad." "Slow down," Christian said, placing a steadying hand on the man's shoulder. "What's happened?" Harker took a deep breath, visibly trying to calm himself. "The Vorax, they've always been dangerous, but manageable, hunting in small packs, staying clear of the colony. But now," he shuddered, "they're attacking in massive groups, coordinated like. They've already breached our outer defenses." Dr. Vance stepped forward, his scientific curiosity piqued despite the dire situation. Coordinated attacks? That's unprecedented behavior for Vorax. Christian's mind raced, connecting the dots. The sabotaged council meeting, Lyrax's escape, the mercenary pursuit. This was no coincidence. "We need to split up," he decided. "Dr. Vance, you're with me. We'll head to the colony's command center, assess the situation, and try to contact the council." He turned to the others. "Lieutenant Chen, Dr. Nomura, start setting up a containment perimeter. Use the portable force field generators. We need a safe zone for the colonists." As the team prepared to move out, a bone-chilling roar echoed across the barren landscape. In the distance, barely visible through the haze, a mass of dark shapes was moving toward the colony. Christian squared his shoulders, keenly aware of the weight of their mission. "Move fast," he said. "We're running out of time." Time. Christian's words hung in the air as the team sprung into action. The roar of the approaching Vorax grew louder, spurring them forward. Christian and Dr. Vance raced towards the colony's command center, their boots pounding against the rocky terrain. Behind them, Lieutenant Chen and Dr. Nomura began unpacking the portable force field generators, their movements swift and precise. As they neared the outer perimeter of the mining colony, Christian could see the devastation wrought by the Vorax attacks. Twisted metal and shattered concrete littered the ground, testament to the creature's ferocity. Harried colonists scrambled to reinforce makeshift barricades, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. Inside the command center, chaos reigned. Alarms blared, and screens flickered with warnings and distress signals. Christian strode to the central console, his eyes scanning the displays for any sign of hope. "Status report," he barked, his voice cutting through the din. A haggard technician looked up from her station. "Sir, the Vorax have breached our outer defenses. We're barely holding the inner perimeter, and our long-range communications are down. We can't reach the council." Christian's mind raced, weighing their options. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and he knew they needed a bold move. His gaze fell on the neural interface control panel, its lights flickering ominously. "Dr. Vance," he called, "how stable is our control over the Vorax specimen?" Vance frowned, his fingers flying over the interface's controls. "Not good, Ambassador. The neural link is degrading. We've got minutes, maybe an hour at most before we lose control completely." Christian made his decision. "We need to draw them away from the colony. I'm going to lead the controlled Vorax into the wilderness." Vance's eyes widened. "Sir, that's incredibly dangerous. If the interface fails while you're out there, it's a risk we have to take." Christian cut him off. "Work on stabilizing that interface, and see if you can boost our long-range communications. We need to contact the Council." As Christian prepared to leave, the command center's doors burst open. Lieutenant Chen and Dr. Nomura stumbled in, their Enviro suits covered in dust and scratches. "Sir," Chen reported, her breath coming in gasps, "we've set up a perimeter with the force fields, but it won't hold for long, and we've got another problem. We were ambushed by mercenaries. They're working with someone named Zarks." Christian's brow furrowed. The conspiracy against them ran deeper than he'd imagined. "Did you learn anything else?" Nomura nodded grimly. "They're after something called an alien signal device. We managed to grab it during our escape, but we don't know what it does." A spark of hope ignited in Christian's chest. "Dr. Vance, could this device be related to the Vorax's behavior?" Vance's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. "It's possible. If I could examine it, perhaps we could find a way to—" Another bone-chilling roar cut through the air, closer this time. Christian knew they were out of time. "Give the device to Dr. Vance," he ordered. "Lieutenant, you're with me. We're going to lead that Vorax away from the colony." As they exited the command center, Christian could see the massive forms of the Vorax in the distance, their scales glinting in the harsh light of Nexus Prime's twin suns. The controlled specimen paced nervously nearby, its movements jerky and unpredictable. Christian approached it cautiously, feeling the weight of the neural interface control unit in his hand. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. "Let's go," he said to Chen, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. Together they began to lead the controlled Vorax away from the colony, deeper into the hostile wilderness of Nexus Prime. Behind them, the feral Vorax pack began to follow, drawn by some primal instinct towards their captive kin. As they trekked across the barren landscape, Christian could feel the neural interface's connection wavering. Each step took them further from safety into the heart of Vorax territory, but with each passing minute, more of the creatures were drawn away from the beleaguered colony. Back at the command center, Dr. Vance worked feverishly to unravel the secrets of the alien signal device. His fingers danced across holographic displays, analyzing its complex circuitry and energy signatures. "Eureka!" he exclaimed, startling the nearby technicians. "This device, it's not just a signal generator. It's a control mechanism, far more advanced than our neural interface." He turned to Dr. Nomura, his eyes shining with excitement. "If we can integrate this technology into our systems, we might be able to not only stabilize our control over the Vorax, but extend it to the entire pack." As Vance and Nomura threw themselves into their work, Christian and Chen pushed deeper into Vorax territory. The controlled specimen's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic, its movements less coordinated. "Sir," Chen said, her voice tense, "I don't think we can keep this up much longer. The interface is failing." Christian nodded grimly. They had come too far to turn back now. As they crested a rocky ridge, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. In the valley below, hundreds of Vorax were gathering, their massive forms creating a living sea of scales and teeth. And at the center of it all, a structure that didn't belong, a sleek alien craft, its surface gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. "Chen," Christian whispered, "I think we've just stumbled onto something big. Whatever's controlling these Vorax, I bet the answer's down there." As they watched, the controlled Vorax let out a low, keening cry. The creatures in the valley below responded, their voices rising in a terrifying chorus. Christian felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up as he realized the truth. They weren't just dealing with mindless beasts. The Vorax were communicating, organizing. The interface control unit in Christian's hand sputtered and died, its lights fading to darkness. The controlled Vorax shuddered, its eyes clearing as it shook off the last vestiges of human control. Christian and Chen found themselves alone on the ridge, surrounded by an army of Earth's most terrifying predators. As the Vorax turned their attention to the two humans, Christian knew that their mission had just become far more complex and far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. With the Vorax closing in, Christian's mind raced, searching for a solution. Suddenly, he remembered Dr. Vance's words about the alien signal device and its potential to control the Vorax. It was a long shot, but it might be their only chance. "Chen, we need to get back to the command center," Christian said, his voice tight with urgency. "Now!" They began their retreat, carefully picking their way down the rocky slope. The Vorax followed, their massive forms casting long shadows in the harsh light of Nexus Prime's twin suns. Christian could feel the creature's hot breath on his neck, hear the scrape of their claws against stone. As they neared the colony's perimeter, Christian's comm unit crackled to life. Dr. Vance's excited voice filled his helmet. "Ambassador, we've made a breakthrough with the alien device. It's not just a signal generator, it's a sophisticated control mechanism. We might be able to extend our influence over the entire Vorax pack." Christian's heart leaped. "Perfect timing, Doctor. We're coming in hot with a few hundred of our new friends. Have that device ready?" They sprinted through the colony's battered defenses, Vorax snapping at their heels. Inside the command center, Dr. Vance and Dr. Nomura were hunched over a jury-rigged console, the alien device pulsing with an eerie blue light. "It's ready," Vance said, his face slick with sweat. "But I must warn you, the electromagnetic disturbances on this planet are intensifying. It's affecting all our systems." Christian nodded grimly. "We don't have a choice. Activate it." Vance flipped a switch and the device hummed to life. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then outside, the Vorax froze in their tracks. Their eyes, once filled with primal hunger, now held a glimmer of intelligence. "It's working," Chen breathed, her voice filled with awe. But their victory was short-lived. Alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Foreman Jack Harker burst through the door, his face pale with fear. "The colony's power systems are failing," he reported. "The electromagnetic interference is worse than we've ever seen. Life support won't last much longer." Christian's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't abandon the colony, but they couldn't stay here either. He made a quick decision. "Captain Steele," he called over the comm, "begin prepping the Horizont for emergency departure. We're evacuating all non-essential personnel." As the evacuation began, Christian turned to his team. "Dr. Vance, can we use the Vorax's natural ability to sense these electromagnetic disturbances? Turn them into some kind of early warning system?" Vance's eyes lit up. "Brilliant idea, Ambassador. If we modify the neural interface to amplify their sensitivity, we could create a living sensor network." As Vance and Nomura set to work, the command center doors burst open again. A battered figure stumbled in, supported by two colonists. His uniform was torn and bloodied, but Christian recognized the insignia of a Vorax hunter. "Sergeant Kai Tanaka," the man gasped, clutching his side. "Thought I was a goner out there." Christian helped Tanaka to a chair. "We thought you were lost on your last expedition. What happened out there?" Tanaka's eyes were haunted as he spoke. "The Vorax. They're using a vast network of underground caverns, moving across the planet unseen. There's more of them than we ever imagined." Christian's mind whirled with the implications. These caverns could be the key to their survival, or their downfall. But before he could formulate a plan, the command center rocked with an explosion. Lieutenant Chen rushed to a security console. "Sir, we're under attack. It's Zarks and his mercenaries. They're after our research and the control technology." Christian's heart made. They were out of time. He turned to his team, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Listen up. We're going to split into two teams. Vance, Nomura, keep working on that neural interface. Chen, You're going to lead a team into those caverns. Take Sergeant Tanaka and set up a series of electromagnetic pulse generators. We'll create a barrier to disorient and repel the Vorax." He paused, looking each of them in the eye. "I'll coordinate the defense here and work on using our controlled Vorax against Zarx's forces. This is our last stand. Let's make it count." As his team sprang into action, Christian turned to face the monitors showing the approaching mercenary forces. Behind them, the controlled Vorax moved in eerie synchronization, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly intelligence. The battle for Nexus Prime had begun, and the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance. Christian squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Christian's mind raced as he assessed their dire situation. The colony was under attack, the Vorax were a constant threat, and now an electromagnetic storm threatened to wipe them all out. He knew they needed a bold plan to survive. "Everyone, listen up," Christian called out, his voice cutting through the chaos of the command center. "We're initiating emergency protocols. Captain Steele, begin evacuating all non-essential personnel to the horizon immediately." As the evacuation orders echoed through the colony's communication channels, Christian turned to his core team. "Dr. Vance, Dr. Nomura, Lieutenant Chen, and Foreman Harker, you're with me. We're heading into the caverns." "The caverns?" Harker exclaimed, his face pale. "But sir, that's Vorax territory." Christian nodded grimly. "Exactly. It's our best chance to turn this situation around. Vance, bring the neural interface and the alien control device. We're taking our controlled Vorax with us." As they prepared to leave, Sergeant Tanaka struggled to his feet. "Sir, I know those caverns. Let me come with you." Christian hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Sergeant. We could use your expertise." The team moved swiftly through the colony, the controlled Vorax following close behind. They could hear the sounds of battle as Zarx's mercenaries clashed with the colony's defenders. The twin suns of Nexus Prime were obscured by ominous, swirling clouds. The electromagnetic storm was building. They reached the cavern entrance just as a massive tremor shook the ground. Christian activated his comlink. "Captain Steele, status report." Steele's voice crackled through, filled with static. "Evacuation proceeding, Ambassador. But this storm is interfering with our systems. We might need to launch earlier than planned." "Understood. Keep that ship ready, Captain. We may need a quick exit." As they descended into the darkness of the caverns, Christian felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The fate of the colony, the mission, and perhaps humanity's future in the galaxy rested on their success. The tunnels were a maze of twisting passages, the walls slick with phosphorescent algae that cast an eerie glow. Their controlled Vorax moved ahead, its enhanced senses guiding them through the labyrinth. Suddenly, the creature stopped, its head swiveling towards a side passage. A low growl emanated from its throat. "We've got company," Chen whispered, raising her weapon. From the shadows, a group of feral Vorax emerged, their eyes gleaming with predatory intent. Christian felt his heart race as he reached for the neural interface control. "Vance, boost the signal," he ordered. Dr. Vance's fingers flew over the device, and their controlled Vorax let out a piercing cry. The feral creatures hesitated, confusion evident in their movements. "It's working," Nomura breathed. "The hive mind, they're responding to our control." Christian nodded, relief washing over him. "Let's keep moving. We need to find Chen's team and those pulse generators." They pressed deeper into the caverns, using their controlled Vorax to keep the feral ones at bay. The air grew thicker, filled with an electric charge that made their hair stand on end. After what felt like hours of tense navigation, they heard familiar voices echoing from a nearby chamber. They entered to find Lieutenant Chen's team, putting the finishing touches on a network of strange devices. "Ambassador," Chen exclaimed, "we've just finished setting up the last of the electromagnetic pulse generators. But sir, we've got a problem." Christian's brow furrowed. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Chen gestured to the pulsing generators. "The Vorax, they're adapting. The pulses aren't having the same effect anymore. They're developing a resistance." Dr. Nomura stepped forward, her eyes wide with realization. "Of course, their ability to sense electromagnetic fields. It must be evolving rapidly in response to the increased activity. Before Christian could respond, a violent tremor shook the cavern. Rocks fell from the ceiling, and a deep, resonant roar echoed through the tunnels. "What was that?" Harker asked, his voice trembling. Sergeant Tanaka's face was grim. "I've heard that sound before. It's like the Vorax we've encountered, but bigger, much bigger." As if in response to Tanaka's words, a massive form appeared at the far end of the chamber. It was a Vorax unlike any they had seen before, nearly twice the size of the others, with scales that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "The Alpha," Nomura whispered in awe. "It must be the focal point of the hive mind." Christian's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. "Vance, reconfigure the neural interface. Maximum output. We need to establish dominance over that Alpha." As Vance worked feverishly on the device, the sound of weapons fire echoed through the caverns. Zarks and his mercenaries had followed them into the underground labyrinth. "Chen, take your team and hold them off," Christian ordered. "Nomura, Harker, protect Vance while he works on that interface." Christian turned to face the Alpha Vorax, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew what he had to do, but the risks were enormous. Slowly, he began to remove his protective gear. "Sir, what are you doing?" Tanaka exclaimed. "What I have to," Christian replied, his voice steady despite his fear. "Sometimes, to lead, you have to be willing to take the greatest risk." With only the neural interface in his hand, Christian stepped towards the Alpha Vorax. The massive creature's eyes locked onto him, filled with an alien intelligence that sent chills down his spine. Behind him, the sounds of battle intensified as Chen's team engaged Zarks' mercenaries. The electromagnetic storm above grew stronger, its energy seeping into the caverns and making the air crackle with power. Christian stood before the Alpha Vorax, exposed and vulnerable. He raised the neural interface, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Everything hinged on this moment: the mission, the colony, humanity's future. As the Alpha Vorax reared up, its massive jaws opening in a deafening roar, Christian activated the device. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from the interface, amplified by the storm raging above. The cavern was bathed in a surreal, pulsating light. The Alpha Vorax reeled back, shaking its massive head in confusion. All around them, the feral Vorax froze, their eyes locked on the confrontation between human and Alpha. Christian gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain as the interface's energy coursed through him. He stared into the Alpha's eyes, willing it to submit, to accept his control over the hive mind. The cavern fell silent, the battle momentarily forgotten as all eyes turned to witness this unprecedented clash of wills. Human persistence faced off against the most fearsome predator the galaxy had ever known, with the fate of Nexus Prime hanging in the balance. In that charged moment of silence, Christian could feel the neural interface reaching its limit. He had only seconds left before the device failed completely. The Alpha Vorax's eyes bore into him, filled with a primal fury that threatened to overwhelm his senses. Consciousness. But as he felt his persistence weakening, something extraordinary happened. The cavern filled with an eerie, pulsating light as the electromagnetic storm above reached its peak. The supercharged neural interface in Christian's hand emitted a continuous stream of electromagnetic pulses, creating a visible aura around him. The Alpha Vorax, initially stunned by the pulse, began to recover and let out a low, menacing growl. Christian's survival instincts kicked in. He mimicked the Vorax's body language, maintaining eye contact and standing his ground. The Alpha, intrigued by this unusual behavior, took a step closer. The tension in the cavern was palpable as the two beings engaged in a silent battle of wills. Suddenly, the controlled Vorax that Christian had brought with him moved forward, positioning itself between him and the Alpha. This unexpected action caused the Alpha to hesitate, its attention divided between the human and the subordinate Vorax. Seizing the opportunity, Christian activated a secondary function of the neural interface. The device began emitting a complex series of low-frequency sounds, mimicking the subvocal communications observed in Vorax packs. The Alpha's posture changed, its aggression giving way to curiosity. As this interaction unfolded, Christian became acutely aware of the growing number of Vorax surrounding them. The creatures, however, remained passive, their attention focused on the confrontation between him and the Alpha. "Ambassador," Dr. Vance's voice cut through the tension, barely above a whisper. "The interface is creating a feedback loop with the Alpha's electromagnetic field. It's amplifying the effect throughout the entire cavern system." Lieutenant Chen, her weapon still raised, spoke quietly. "Hold positions, no sudden movements." The Alpha Vorax, responding to the neural interface's signals, began to emit its own series of low-frequency sounds. Dr. Nomura's eyes widened as she analyzed these emissions. "It's working," she breathed. "We're establishing rudimentary communication." As this unprecedented exchange continued, the surrounding Vorax started to exhibit signs of reduced aggression. The hive mind, influenced by the Alpha's changing behavior, began to shift its collective consciousness. A commotion from behind caught Christian's attention. Zarx, seeing his plans unraveling, raised his weapon and aimed at Christian. Before anyone could react, several Vorax swiftly moved to intercept him, effectively neutralizing the threat without causing harm. This protective action by the Vorax marked a turning point. The Alpha, seemingly convinced of Christian's non-threatening intent, lowered its aggressive posture. In a breathtaking moment, it approached Christian and lowered its massive head, allowing him to place his hand on its snout. As Christian made physical contact with the Alpha, the neural interface's signal synchronized perfectly with the Vorax's electromagnetic field. A wave of calm spread through the cavern, affecting all Vorax present. The hive mind, now aligned with Christian's influence, brought the entire Vorax population under a form of cooperative control. Christian felt a surge of relief and awe wash over him. They had done it. They had not only saved the colony, but also revolutionized human-Vorax relations. However, his elation was short-lived, as alarms began blaring from the neural interface. Dr. Vance rushed to Christian's side, his face etched with concern. "The interface is overheating. It's being pushed beyond its limits. We need to stabilize it now, or we'll lose the connection." Christian's mind raced. They were so close to achieving the impossible, but now everything hung in the balance. He looked at the Alpha Vorax, its eyes still locked with his, and made a decision. "Vance, Nomura," he called out, his voice steady despite the strain. "I need you to recalibrate the interface. Use the electromagnetic readings from the storm to boost the signal." As the scientists worked feverishly on the device, Christian maintained his connection with the Alpha. He could feel the creature's consciousness brushing against his own, a sensation both alien and oddly familiar. "Lieutenant Chen," Christian said, not breaking eye contact with the Alpha. "Contact the Horizont. We need to know what's happening on the surface." Chen nodded and activated her comlink. After a moment, she reported, "The storm is subsiding, sir. Captain Steele says they're detecting significant changes in the planet's electromagnetic field. Whatever we're doing down here, it's having a planet-wide effect." As if in response to this news, the Alpha Vorax let out a low, resonant sound. The other Vorax in the cavern echoed the call, creating a haunting chorus that reverberated through the underground network. Dr. Nomura's eyes lit up with understanding. They're communicating with the entire hive mind across the planet. We're witnessing the formation of a new symbiotic relationship between humans and Vorax. The neural interface's alarms suddenly ceased, and Dr. Vance let out a sigh of relief. "We've stabilized the connection. It's holding steady." Christian nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. They had achieved something unprecedented, but he knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, maintaining this fragile peace and proving to the Galactic Council that humanity's approach to the Vorax problem was not only effective, but revolutionary. As the immediate crisis subsided, Christian became aware of the fatigue settling into his bones. He had pushed himself to the limit, both physically and mentally. But there was no time to rest. They needed to solidify this alliance and prepare for the scrutiny that was sure to come. "Chen," Christian said, his voice hoarse from exertion, "secure Zarx and his mercenaries. We'll need to deal with them later." He turned to the rest of his team, his eyes reflecting the magnitude of what they had accomplished. "We've made history here today, but our work is a long way to go. We need to document everything, prepare our findings for the Galactic Council, and figure out how to maintain this connection long-term. As his team sprang into action, Christian took a moment to look around the cavern. The Vorax, once their greatest threat, now moved with an almost serene purpose. The Alpha remained by his side, a silent guardian of their newfound alliance. Christian knew that the path ahead would be challenging. They had to navigate the complex politics of the Galactic Council, manage the expectations of the colonists, and ensure the continued cooperation of the Vorax. But as he stood there, surrounded by the fruits of human perseverance and alien collaboration, he felt a glimmer of hope for the future of Nexus Prime and humanity's place in the galaxy. Galaxy. Suddenly, alarms blared from the neural interface, shattering the moment of triumph. Dr. Vance rushed to Christian's side, his face etched with concern. The interface is overheating. We're losing the connection. Christian's mind raced as he assessed the situation. The fragile peace they had achieved was slipping away with each passing second. He locked eyes with the Alpha Vorax, its gaze reflecting a newfound intelligence and understanding. In a split-second decision, Christian removed the neural interface from his head. "Vance, we need to stabilize this now." Before anyone could react, Christian pressed the device directly onto the Alpha Vorax's skull. The massive creature flinched but remained still, a testament to the trust they had built. The cavern fell silent as everyone held their breath. The neural interface pulsed with energy, its lights flickering erratically. Then, as if by some miracle, the alarm ceased. The connection stabilized, creating an unprecedented link between the Alpha and the device. Lieutenant Chen signaled the team to back away slowly. "Give them space," she whispered, her eyes never leaving the scene before her. The surrounding Vorax pack watched intently, their behavior mirroring their leader's calm demeanor. Christian stood before the Alpha, now without any technological protection, yet feeling more connected than ever. As the neural interface cooled on the Alpha's head, a remarkable transformation took place. The creature's eyes gleamed with a new level of awareness. It turned its massive head towards the cave entrance, then back to Christian, conveying a clear message. "It wants us to follow," Christian said, his voice filled with awe. Cautiously, the team began to move. Christian led the way, walking side by side with the Alpha Vorax. The rest of the pack fell in line behind them, creating an awe-inspiring procession of humans and the galaxy's most feared predators. As they emerged from the caverns, the aftermath of the electromagnetic storm became apparent. The colony's structures stood damaged but not destroyed. In the distance, the HFY Horizon hovered, a beacon of safety for the evacuated colonists. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the comms. "Ambassador Hill, we're witnessing something extraordinary here. We're transmitting live footage to the Galactic Council as we speak." Christian nodded, fully aware of the implications. The sight of humans and Vorax emerging together, without restraints or visible control devices, would send shockwaves through the galactic community. Foreman Harker approached, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Christian, the colony, it's in ruins. What are we going to do?" Before Christian could respond, the Alpha Vorax let out a series of low-frequency calls. The pack immediately spread out across the colony, their massive forms moving with purpose. Dr. Nomura gasped as she observed their behavior. "They're helping. The Vorax are clearing debris and assisting in the restoration efforts." Indeed, the creatures were using their immense strength to move fallen structures and clear pathways. Some were even working in tandem with the few pieces of functioning machinery left in the colony. "The neural interface," Vance said, his voice filled with excitement. "It's not just establishing a connection, it's enhancing their cognitive abilities, allowing them to understand and respond to complex situations." As word spread, colonists began to cautiously emerge from the horizon. They watched in awe as the once feared Vorax now worked tirelessly to rebuild what the storm had destroyed. Christian spotted Zarks and his captured mercenaries, now under guard by both human security forces and vigilant Vorax. The saboteur's face was a mask of disbelief as he watched his plans crumble before his eyes. Nearby, the Zarn scientist Grix approached Christian, his alien features set in an expression of curiosity. Ambassador Hill, this is truly remarkable. I would like to offer my assistance in further research to stabilize and enhance the neural interface technology. Christian nodded, recognizing the potential benefits of such collaboration. Thank you, Grix. We'll need all the help we can get to understand and develop this further. As the day progressed, the true extent of the Vorax's newfound intelligence became increasingly apparent. They not only assisted in rebuilding efforts, but also began to exhibit problem-solving skills in optimizing the colony's infrastructure. Christian watched as a group of Vorax worked together to reinforce a damaged power relay, their actions displaying an understanding of the colony's energy needs. It was a sight that would have been unimaginable just days ago. Dr. Vance, Christian called out, I need you to compile all our data and findings. We need to transmit everything to the Galactic Council immediately. This changes everything. Vance nodded, already moving to gather their research team. On it, sir. We'll have a comprehensive report ready within the hour. As night began to fall on Nexus Prime, Christian gathered his core team. They huddled together, surrounded by the sounds of ongoing reconstruction and the low, harmonious calls of the Vorax pack. We've achieved something incredible here, Christian began, his voice low but filled with intensity. But our work is just getting started. We need to consolidate our gains, address the remaining threats, and prepare to present our findings to the Galactic Council. Lieutenant Chen nodded, her eyes scanning the perimeter. What about Zarx and his mercenaries, and the long-term stability of the neural interface? Christian's gaze drifted to the Alpha Vorax, still wearing the interface on its massive head. Those are just some of the challenges we'll need to address. We've opened up a new frontier here, and we need to be prepared for whatever comes next. As the team discussed their next steps, the colony buzzed with activity. Humans and Vorax worked side by side, rebuilding and strengthening their shared home. The future of Nexus Prime, and perhaps the entire galaxy, had been irrevocably changed. What lay ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since landing on this hostile world, there was a genuine sense of hope. There was also a palpable sense of uncertainty. The magnitude of their achievement was matched only by the challenges that lay ahead. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the transformed landscape of Nexus Prime, Christian Hill surveyed the bustling activity around him. The colony, once on the brink of destruction, now buzzed with a peculiar mix of human and Vorax cooperation. Dr. Elias Vance approached Christian, his eyes rimmed with dark circles from a sleepless night of work. Ambassador, I've made a breakthrough, he said, his voice hoarse but filled with excitement. I've developed a prototype for a more stable, long-term neural interface. Christian turned his attention to the scientist, intrigued. Go on, Doctor. Vance held up a small, sleek device. We can implant these smaller, less invasive devices into multiple Vorax. It'll create a network of control nodes, distributing the load and reducing the risk of system failure. Christian nodded, his mind racing with the implications. This could be the key to ensuring lasting peace. Get started on implementing this immediately, but proceed with caution. We need to monitor the effects closely. As Vance hurried off to begin his work, Lieutenant Daria Chen approached, her face set in a grim expression. Sir, we've completed our security sweep of the colony, she reported. We've found something you need to see. Chen led Christian to a hidden alcove near the colony's perimeter. There, partially concealed by debris, sat a sophisticated communications array. It appears Zarx had been in contact with an unknown external party, Chen explained, her voice low. Christian's brow furrowed as he examined the device. This complicates things. We're not just dealing with a rogue mercenary, there's a larger force at play here. As they discussed the implications of this discovery, Foreman Jack Harker's voice crackled over the comm system. Ambassador Hill, you might want to see this. Christian made his way to the colony's main plaza, where he found Harker standing alongside a group of colonists and Vorax. The scene before him was nothing short of remarkable. Humans and Vorax worked side by side, clearing rubble and repairing structures with surprising efficiency. It's incredible, Harker said, his voice filled with awe. The Vorax, they're not just following orders, they're problem-solving, finding ways to work around obstacles we hadn't even considered. Christian watched as a Vorax delicately maneuvered a fallen support beam, allowing a team of human engineers to access a damaged power conduit. The creature's movements were precise, almost graceful, a far cry from the savage predator they had once known. "This is more than we could have hoped for," Christian said, a small smile playing on his lips. "But we can't let our guard down. There's still much work to be done." As if on cue, Captain Marcus Steele's voice came through Christian's comlink. "Ambassador, I've just received word from the Galactic Council. They're sending representatives for an immediate inspection. They want to verify our claims about the Vorax cooperation." Christian's smile faded. "Understood, Captain. How long do we have?" "They'll be here within 48 hours, Steele replied. Christian turned to Harker. "We need to accelerate our efforts. The Council needs to see undeniable proof of our success when they arrive." As Harker nodded and moved to organize the work teams, Dr. Kira Nomura approached, her eyes bright with excitement. "Ambassador, I've made a breakthrough in understanding Vorax communication," she said, holding up a small device. "It's a rudimentary translation matrix based on the Alpha's low-frequency calls. We can now communicate with them on a basic level." Christian's eyes widened at the implication. "This changes everything, Doctor." "Well done." As the day progressed, Christian found himself constantly on the move, addressing one challenge after another. He oversaw the implementation of Vance's new neural interface network, coordinated with Chen on enhanced security measures, and worked with Nomura to establish clearer lines of communication with the Vorax. Amidst the flurry of activity, Christian noticed the Alpha Vorax watching him intently. The creature's eyes, once filled with primal hunger, now seemed to hold a depth of intelligence that was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Using Nomura's translation device, Christian approached the Alpha. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his voice cautious. The Alpha's response came as a series of low growls and clicks, translated by the device into stilted but understandable language. "Want, explore, beyond walls, see more." Christian felt a chill run down his spine. The implications of the Alpha's request were staggering. They had given these creatures intelligence, but with that came desires, curiosity, and potentially demands. As night fell on Nexus Prime, Christian gathered his core team for a meeting. The colony's main conference room, hastily repaired, served as their war room. Maps, data screens, and holographic projections surrounded them, each displaying a different aspect of their monumental task. "We've made incredible progress," Christian began, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "But the Council's inspection will be the true test. We need to be prepared for every eventuality." Dr. Vance spoke up, his fingers dancing across a datapad. "The new neural interface network is stable, but we're still learning its full capabilities. We need more time to—" He was interrupted by a loud crash from outside. The team rushed to the windows to see a Vorax, its eyes wild, thrashing against a building. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed their worst fears were being realized. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the Vorax calmed. The Alpha approached, emitting a series of low-frequency calls. The agitated Vorax lowered its head in submission and retreated. Christian exchanged glances with his team. The message was clear. Their control was not absolute. The Vorax were not simply tools or weapons. They were thinking, feeling creatures, and the ethical implications of their actions were becoming increasingly complex. As they settled back into their seats, the weight of their responsibility hung heavy in the air. They had changed the course of human-Vorax relations, perhaps even the future of interspecies interactions across the galaxy. But as they prepared for the Council's inspection, one question loomed large. Had they opened Pandora's box? His box? Christian's contemplation was interrupted by the distant hum of an approaching shuttle. He checked his chronometer, right on schedule. The Galactic Council inspection team had arrived. "Everyone to your stations," Christian ordered through his comlink. "This is it." As the sleek, high-security shuttle touched down near the colony's newly repaired landing pad, Christian and his core team assembled to greet their visitors. The shuttle's hatch hissed open, revealing Senior Inspector Zorak, a stern-looking Zendari with iridescent scales and piercing yellow eyes. "Inspector Zorak," Christian said, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. "Welcome to Nexus Prime." The Zendari regarded Christian's hand for a moment before grasping it firmly. Ambassador Hill, I trust you understand the gravity of this inspection. Christian nodded, his face set in a mask of professional composure. Of course, Inspector. We're prepared to demonstrate everything we've achieved here. As they began the tour, Christian couldn't help but notice the way Jorok's eyes darted about, taking in every detail of the transformed colony. The once ravaged landscape now buzzed with activity, humans and Vorax working side by side to rebuild and improve their shared home. As you can see, Christian explained as they passed a group of Vorax carefully maneuvering a large support beam into place, the Vorax have become integral to our restoration efforts. Their strength and newfound intelligence have accelerated our progress exponentially. Jorok's antennae twitched, a sign of interest, or perhaps skepticism. Impressive, if true, but I must ask, Ambassador Hill, how can you be certain of their loyalty? These creatures were your mortal enemies mere days ago. Before Christian could respond, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Alarms blared across the colony as a minor earthquake struck, sending small debris cascading from nearby structures. In an instant, the scene transformed. Vorax, their enhanced senses having detected the tremors before the human instruments, sprang into action. They positioned themselves around groups of colonists, using their massive bodies as shields against falling debris. Others quickly guided humans to designated safe zones, their movements precise and purposeful. Christian steadied himself against a nearby wall, watching in awe as the Vorax's protective instincts kicked in. He glanced at Jorok, whose usual stoic expression had given way to one of genuine surprise. As the tremors subsided, Dr. Elias Vance approached the group, his lab coat dusty from the quake but his eyes bright with excitement. Inspector Jorok, he said, producing a small, sleek device from his pocket. If I may, I'd like to present our latest breakthrough, a new distributed neural interface system. Jorok's attention shifted to the device, his interest piqued. Proceed, Doctor. Vance launched into a detailed explanation of the system's capabilities and safety measures. As he spoke, Christian noticed the Alpha Vorax watching them intently from nearby, its intelligent eyes fixed on the group. A live demonstration would be most illuminating, Jorok said as Vance concluded his presentation. Christian exchanged a glance with Vance. This was a risk, but also an opportunity they couldn't afford to miss. Of course, Inspector. If you'll follow me to our testing area. In a controlled environment at the edge of the colony, Christian stood before the inspection team, the Alpha Vorax at his side. He took a deep breath, focusing his thoughts as he activated the neural interface. Watch closely, Christian said, his voice steady despite the tension he felt. With a series of mental commands, he directed the Alpha Vorax through a complex series of tasks, moving objects with precision, solving a basic puzzle, even assisting with a simulated repair on colony equipment. The inspection team watched in stunned silence as human and Vorax moved in perfect synchronization. Even Jorok's composed demeanor slipped, revealing a flicker of amazement. Suddenly, the Alpha Vorax paused, its head tilting as if listening to a distant sound. Before anyone could react, it moved away from Christian, approaching Inspector Jorok with purposeful strides. The inspection team tensed, hands moving to their weapons. But Christian raised a hand, urging calm. He could sense through the neural link that the Vorax meant no harm. With surprising gentleness, the Alpha Vorax reached out, plucking a data pad that had slipped from Jorok's pocket during the earlier earthquake. It held the device out to the startled inspector, who hesitantly took it. Remarkable, Jorok murmured, his eyes moving from the Vorax to Christian and back again. Truly remarkable. As the day progressed, Christian and his team continued to present their findings and achievements. Lieutenant Chen briefed the inspection team on the hidden communications array and its links to the Galactic Equilibrium Initiative. Foreman Harker showcased the improved efficiency of their resource processing facilities, while Dr. Nomura demonstrated her rudimentary translation matrix, allowing Jorok to exchange basic communication with a Vorax. Just as the inspection seemed to be winding down, an urgent message flashed across Christian's comm device. His face grew grim as he read the contents. Inspector Jorok, Christian said, his voice tight with concern. We've just received word from Earth. The Galactic Equilibrium Initiative has launched attacks on several other human colonies. The situation is critical. Jorak's antenna stood rigid, a clear sign of alarm. This is most disturbing news, Ambassador Hill. What do you propose? Christian's mind raced, formulating a plan even as he spoke. We have an unprecedented opportunity here, Inspector. With your approval, we could form a joint human-Vorax rapid response force. We could assist the threatened colonies and deal with both conventional threats and Vorax-related issues across human-controlled space. The inspection team exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of intrigue and apprehension. Jorak's eyes narrowed as he considered the proposal. A bold vision, Ambassador, Jorak said carefully, but one that raises significant concerns. The long-term stability of Vorax control, the ethical implications of this neural interface technology, these are not small matters. Christian nodded, understanding the weight of what he was proposing. We're prepared to implement additional safeguards and submit to ongoing monitoring, Inspector. We recognize the need for transparency and cooperation with the Galactic Council in this endeavor. As the sun began to set on Nexus Prime, casting long shadows across the transformed landscape, Inspector Jorak stood at the shuttle's boarding ramp. His team was already aboard, preparing for departure. You've given us much to consider, Ambassador Hill, Jorak said, his tone measured. My preliminary report will reflect the remarkable achievements we've witnessed here, as well as the complex challenges that lie ahead. The Council will need time to deliberate on your proposal. Christian nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. We understand, Inspector. Thank you for your thorough evaluation. As the shuttle's engines whirred to life, Christian watched it ascend into the darkening sky. The future of humanity's place in the galactic community now hung in the balance, dependent on how they navigated the unprecedented alliance they had forged with the Vorax. Behind him, the low harmonic calls of the Vorax pack echoed across the colony. Christian turned, gazing out at the horizon where human structures and Vorax nests now stood side by side. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges, both known and unforeseen. But as he watched humans and Vorax working together in the fading light, Christian felt a glimmer of hope for the future they were building, not just for Nexus Prime, but for all of humanity. Humanity, but for all sentient beings across the galaxy. Christian's moment of reflection was abruptly shattered by the urgent beeping of his communicator. He tapped the device, and Captain Marcus Steele's holographic image flickered to life. Ambassador Hill, we have a situation, Steele's voice crackled with static. Multiple unidentified vessels have entered orbit. Signatures match known GEI ships. Christian's eyes hardened. Understood, Captain. Initiate emergency protocols. I'm on my way. As Christian sprinted towards the command center, alarms blared across the colony. Colonists and Vorax alike snapped to attention, their recent drills paying off as they moved with practiced efficiency to their designated positions. Lieutenant Chen, Christian called out as he burst into the command center. Status report. Daria Chen's fingers danced across a holographic display. GEI ships are on approach, sir. Colony defenses are online, but we're outnumbered. Christian nodded grimly. Deploy our human Vorax security teams, and get me the Alpha. Moments later, the Alpha Vorax lumbered into the room, its intelligent eyes fixed on Christian. Through the neural interface, Christian sensed the creature's alertness and readiness. We need a defensive strategy, Christian communicated through the link. Can you coordinate the pack? The Alpha's response came not in words, but in a series of vivid mental images. Christian watched in awe as the Vorax pack spread out across the colony's perimeter, taking up strategic positions with a level of tactical awareness that would have been impossible just days ago. Outside, the sky darkened as GEI ships descended. The whine of engines filled the air, punctuated by the staccato burst of weapons fire. Colony defense turrets returned fire, filling the air with streaks of energy. They're deploying ground forces, Chen reported, her voice tense. Combat drones and mercenaries. They're targeting the research facilities. Christian's mind raced. Lieutenant, take a mixed unit and execute a flanking maneuver. Cut off their supply lines. Chen nodded sharply and sprinted from the room, already calling out orders through her comm link. Through the command center's windows, Christian watched as the battle unfolded. GEI forces pressed forward, their advanced weaponry threatening to overwhelm the colony's defenses. But where the attackers expected to find disorganized resistance, they instead met a unified front of humans and Voraks. Voraks used their massive limbs to hurl debris at incoming drones, smashing them from the sky. Others created elaborate decoys, confusing enemy sensors and drawing fire away from vital installations. Human defenders moved in concert with their Voraks allies, each compensating for the other's weaknesses. In the research sector, Dr. Vance and Dr. Nomura worked feverishly to secure the neural interface technology. Initiating emergency backup protocol, Vance shouted over the din of battle, distributing core programming to secure nodes. Nomura nodded, her fingers flying over a keyboard. Data packets away. Even if they get to us, they can't destroy everything. Meanwhile, Foreman Harker led a group of colonists and Voraks in fortifying the colony's infrastructure. Put your backs into it, he bellowed, directing a team of Voraks as they lifted a massive steel barrier into place. Those GEI bastards aren't getting through here. In the secure bunker, Inspector Zorak and his team watched the unfolding battle with a mixture of horror and fascination. This is unprecedented, Zorak murmured, his antennae twitching rapidly. The level of coordination between species. Christian's focus was drawn back to the Alpha Voraks as a surge of information flowed through the neural link. Captain Steele, he called out, activating the comm link to the horizont. The Alphas identified a pattern in the GEI attack. Sending data now. Steele's response was immediate. Received, adjusting orbital positions for precision strike. Moments later, a beam of energy lanced down from the sky, striking the GEI command ship with pinpoint accuracy. The vessel's shields flared and failed, secondary explosions rippling across its hull. Direct hit, Steele's voice crackled through the comm. GEI command structure is compromised. As the tide of battle turned, Christian allowed himself a moment of hope, but that hope was short-lived as a new alert blared through the command center. Intruder alert in Sector 7, an automated voice announced. GEI strike team approaching neural interface storage. Christian's blood ran cold. If the GEI got their hands on the interface prototypes, all their work could be undone. Without hesitation, he sprinted from the command center, the Alpha Voraks hot on his heels. As they raced through the colony's corridors, Christian marveled at the Voraks' enhanced speed and agility. The creature kept pace effortlessly, its powerful limbs eating up the distance. They rounded a corner to find a group of GEI operatives engaged in a firefight with colony security. Without breaking stride, Christian and the Alpha plunged into the fray. The battle was chaotic, a blur of energy weapons and Voraks claws. Christian ducked and weaved, relying on the neural link to coordinate his movements with the Alpha. Together, they pushed forward, driving the GEI team back. Suddenly, a GEI operative broke from the group, making a dash for the research lab. Christian pursued, but found his path blocked by enemy fire. He watched in horror as the operative raised his weapon, aiming at a group of scientists huddled behind a makeshift barricade. Time seemed to slow. Christian saw the weapon's muzzle flash, heard the scientists' cries of fear. But before the energy bolt could reach its target, a blur of motion intercepted it. A Voraks, moving with incredible speed, threw itself into the path of the shot. The creature went down with a roar of pain, but its sacrifice had given Christian the opening he needed. He lunged forward, tackling the GEI operative to the ground. A brief struggle ensued, ending with the operative unconscious and Christian breathing heavily, adrenaline coursing through his veins. As the sounds of battle began to fade, replaced by the cheers of colonists and the triumphant calls of Voraks, Christian allowed himself to survey the scene. The colony was battered but unbroken. Humans and Voraks moved among the wreckage, tending to the wounded and securing captured GEI equipment. Inspector Zorak approached, his usual composure shaken by what he had witnessed. Ambassador Hill, he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. I believe we have much to discuss. Christian nodded, his mind already racing with the implications of what had transpired. The defense of Nexus Prime had been a success, but he knew it was only the beginning. The GEI would not take this defeat lightly, and the eyes of the galaxy were now upon them. As he watched a human medic tenderly treating the wounded Vorax that had saved the scientists, Christian felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had proven that humans and Vorax could not only coexist but thrive together. Now, they would have to fight to preserve that future. The battle was over, but a new chapter in the story of Nexus Prime was just beginning. The colony buzzed with activity as humans and Vorax worked side by side, clearing debris and reinforcing damaged structures. Christian strode purposefully through the command center, his mind racing with the tasks ahead. "Lieutenant Chen, Dr. Vance, Foreman Harker, my office now," he called out, his voice carrying over the din of reconstruction efforts. As his core team assembled, Christian activated the room's holographic display. The three-dimensional map of Nexus Prime flickered to life, areas of damage highlighted in pulsing red. "We've repelled the initial attack, but we can't afford to let our guard down," Christian began, his eyes scanning the faces around him. "Our first priority is intelligence gathering. Lieutenant Chen, I need you to lead the interrogation of our GEI prisoners. We need to know what they know, but remember, we're not them. Stick to ethical protocols." Chen nodded sharply, her expression resolute. "Understood, sir. I'll assemble a team and begin immediately." Christian turned to Dr. Vance, who was already poring over data on his tablet. "Elias, what can you tell me about the neural interface's performance during the battle?" Vance looked up, his eyes alight with excitement. "It's fascinating, Christian. The stress of combat seems to have triggered unexpected mutations in the Vorax neural pathways. Their cognitive abilities may be expanding beyond our initial projections." "Potential risks?" Christian asked, his brow furrowing. "Unknown at this point," Vance admitted. "We'll need to conduct thorough studies to understand the full implications." Christian nodded, making a mental note to allocate resources for this research. He turned to Harker, who was studying the holographic display intently. "Jack, I want a comprehensive upgrade of our defensive systems. Work with both human and Vorax teams. Integrate their sensory capabilities with our tech. I don't want to be caught off guard again." Harker grinned, cracking his knuckles. "You got it, boss. We'll have this place locked down tighter than a Zarn's wallet." As the meeting concluded, Christian's communicator chirped. "Ambassador Hill," a familiar voice crackled through. "Senior Inspector Zorak requests an immediate conference." Christian suppressed a sigh. "Understood. I'm on my way." He found Zorak and his team in their temporary quarters, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. The inspector's antennae twitched as Christian entered. "Ambassador Hill," Zorak began, his tone carefully neutral. "Recent events have necessitated a change in our plans. The Galactic Council has instructed us to extend our stay on Nexus Prime indefinitely." Christian's eyebrows rose. "Indefinitely?" Zorak nodded. "We wish to observe the long-term stability of your human-Vorax alliance. The implications for conflict resolution across the galaxy are significant." As Christian processed this information, alarms blared through the complex. He tapped his communicator. "Hill here. What's the situation?" Captain Steele's voice came through, tense and focused. "Multiple contacts detected at the edge of the system, sir. Signatures match known GEI vessels. Looks like the first attack might have been just a probing force." Christian's eyes sharp. "Understood, Captain. Maintain surveillance and alert status. I'll brief the colony leadership." Turning back to Zorak, Christian saw a mixture of apprehension and curiosity in the inspector's compound eyes. "It seems you'll have ample opportunity to observe our alliance in action, Inspector," Christian said grimly. "If you'll excuse me, I need to prepare our defenses." As Christian hurried back to the command center, his mind raced with possibilities. The successful repulsion of the first attack had bought them time, but now they faced a potentially larger threat. They needed to leverage every advantage they had, including the enhanced abilities of their Vorax allies. Entering the command center, Christian was met with a flurry of activity. Humans and Vorax moved in concert, relaying information and coordinating defense plans with a level of synergy that would have been unimaginable just days ago. "Dr. Nomura," Christian called out, spotting the linguist bent over a console. "Any progress on decoding Vorax communication?" Kira looked up, her eyes bright with excitement despite the tense situation. Actually, yes. We've discovered they use a combination of low-frequency vocalizations and subtle electromagnetic signals for complex communication within their pack. It's opening up entirely new avenues for cooperation. Christian nodded, his mind already spinning with the tactical possibilities this presented. Excellent work. Coordinate with Lieutenant Chen. See if we can incorporate this into our defense strategies. As he turned to address the rest of the command staff, Christian caught sight of the Alpha Vorax. The creature stood apart from the others, its intelligent eyes fixed on Christian with an intensity that gave him pause. Through the neural interface, Christian sensed a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions far more complex than he had ever experienced from a Vorax before. Approaching the Alpha cautiously, Christian opened his mind to the link. The flood of information that poured through nearly overwhelmed him. The Alpha wasn't just relaying tactical data or sensory input, it was questioning, reasoning, philosophizing. You want to speak with the Galactic Council? Christian asked aloud, struggling to process the alien thoughts. The Alpha's response came not in words, but in a series of vivid mental images and concepts. It was expressing a desire for representation, for a voice in the decisions that would shape the future of its species. Christian's mind reeled with the implications. The neural interface wasn't just enhancing the Vorax's abilities, it was fundamentally altering their consciousness, their very sense of self. Before he could fully process this development, the command center's main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The face that appeared was unfamiliar to Christian, but the voice that spoke sent a chill down his spine. Ambassador Hill, the figure said, its tone coldly professional. I am Admiral Vex of the Galactic Equilibrium Initiative. Your colony's recent performance has attracted our full attention. I suggest you prepare yourselves. What you faced before was merely the opening move in a much larger game. As the transmission cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence, Christian realized that the true test of the Human-Vorax alliance was only just beginning. The board was set, the pieces were moving, and the fate of Nexus Prime, perhaps of humanity itself, hung in the balance. Balance. The transmission from Admiral Vex had barely faded from the screen when a new alert blared through the command center. Unidentified vessel entering orbit, Lieutenant Chen announced, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. It's massive. Christian strode to the main view screen, his heart racing. The image that materialized before him was enough to make even the stoic Captain Steele take a sharp breath. A Zarn warship, its sleek biomechanical hull gleaming in the light of Nexus Prime's sun, dwarfed the HFY's horizon like a whale beside a minnow. Sir? Chen's voice was taut with tension. We're receiving a transmission from the Zarn vessel. Christian nodded, bracing himself. The screen flickered, revealing a face that seemed more machine than organic. Cybernetic implants crisscrossed the reptilian features, pulsing with an eerie blue light. Ambassador Hill. The Zarn's voice was a disconcerting blend of organic growl and synthetic modulation. I am Admiral Krelthax of the Zarn Imperium. We request permission to land and discuss a matter of galactic importance. Christian's mind raced, weighing the potential risks and benefits. He glanced at Inspector Zorak, whose antennae were twitching rapidly, a sign of intense calculation. Permission granted, Admiral, Christian replied, keeping his voice steady. We'll prepare a landing zone immediately. As the command center burst into a flurry of activity, Christian pulled his core team aside. Lieutenant Chen, I want every available sensor trained on that ship. Dr. Vance, prepare a briefing on Zarn biology and technology. Jack, beef up security around the landing zone. And someone find Dr. Nomura. We might need her linguistic expertise. The next hour was a blur of preparation. Christian stood at the edge of the designated landing area, flanked by his team and a contingent of both human and Vorax security forces. The ground trembled as the Zarn shuttle descended, its hull shimmering with what appeared to be living metal. The shuttle's hatch opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere, and Admiral Krelthax emerged. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the Zarn commander cut an imposing figure. Cybernetic limbs whirred softly as he approached, his reptilian eyes scanning the welcoming committee with unnerving intensity. Ambassador Hill, Krelthax's voice reverberated through the air. I appreciate your prompt acceptance of our request. The matter we must discuss is of utmost urgency. Christian stepped forward, extending his hand in the universal gesture of greeting. Welcome to Nexus Prime, Admiral. We're honored by your visit. Krelthax regarded Christian's hand for a moment before grasping it with surprising gentleness. The honor is ours, Ambassador. Your colony's recent performance against the GEI has not gone unnoticed. As they walked towards the colony's main conference room, Christian couldn't help but notice the way the Zarn Admiral's gaze lingered on the Vorax members of their security detail. There was something in that look, curiosity, perhaps, or calculation, that set Christian's nerves on edge. Once seated in the conference room, Admiral Krelthax wasted no time in coming to the point. The Zarn Imperium proposes a military alliance with Nexus Prime, he stated, his cybernetic eyes fixed on Christian. A joint task force to combat the growing threat of the GEI across the galaxy. The room fell silent. Christian could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was an opportunity that could change the course of human history in the galaxy, or lead them into a trap they might never escape. Before Christian could respond, his communicator chirped urgently. Excuse me, Admiral, he said, rising from his seat. He stepped to the corner of the room, keeping one eye on the Zarn delegation. Hill here, he whispered into the device. Dr. Vance's excited voice came through. Christian, you need to see this. The neural interface, it's having an effect beyond our Vorax pack. We're detecting changes in Vorax behavior on nearby planets. It's like they're all connected somehow. Christian's mind reeled with the implications. He glanced at the Alpha Vorax, who stood silently in the corner of the conference room, its intelligent eyes fixed on the Zarn Admiral with an intensity that was almost palpable. As he turned back to the table, Christian noticed Lieutenant Chen slip into the room, her face pale. She leaned in close, her voice barely audible. Sir, the GEI prisoners, they've revealed a plot to infiltrate the Galactic Council. There are sympathizers in key positions. Christian's head spun. The Zarn offer of an alliance, the expanding influence of the neural interface, the threat of GEI infiltration at the highest levels of galactic government, it was almost too much to process. And yet, he knew that every second counted. The future of Nexus Prime, of humanity's place in the galaxy, hung in the balance. He took a deep breath, centering himself. Admiral Krelthax, Christian began, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his mind. Your offer is both generous and timely. However, there are some recent developments we must consider before making any decisions. The Zarn Admiral's cybernetic eyes whirred as they focused on Christian. Developments, Ambassador? Do enlighten us. After all, in times of galactic upheaval, information is the most valuable currency of all. As Christian prepared to brief the Zarn delegation on the complex situation unfolding around them, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The next few hours would shape the destiny of not just Nexus Prime, but potentially the entire galaxy. Galaxy. The weight of the moment pressed down on Christian as he prepared to brief the Zarn delegation. Before he could begin, alarms blared through the complex, their urgent wail cutting through the tense atmosphere of the conference room. Christian's communicator buzzed with an incoming alert from the command center. Hill here, he answered, his voice tight with anticipation. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled through the device. Sir, we've detected multiple explosions across the colony's power grid. Our defensive systems are going dark. Christian's mind raced. The saboteurs had struck, just as the mysterious informant had warned. He turned to address the room, his expression grim. Admiral Krelthax, Inspector Zorak, we have a critical situation unfolding. Our colony is under attack from within. The Zarn Admiral's cybernetic eyes whirred as they focused on Christian. Internal strife at such a crucial moment? Most unfortunate. Christian nodded, his eyes sharp. We need to move quickly. Admiral, I'd like to continue our discussion, but first, I must address this threat. Krelthax inclined his head. By all means, Ambassador, we shall observe how you handle this crisis. It may prove illuminating. Christian tapped his communicator. Initiate lockdown protocol Alpha. All security teams on high alert. Lieutenant Chen, assemble a mixed human Vorax team and begin tracking down the saboteurs. He turned to the Alpha Vorax, who stood silently in the corner, its intelligent eyes fixed on the unfolding scene. Through the neural interface, Christian sensed a mixture of concern and perseverance emanating from the creature. "We need your help," Christian said aloud, addressing the Alpha directly. "Your enhanced senses could be crucial in tracking down the infiltrators." The Alpha's response came not in words, but in a surge of mental images and sensations. Christian saw flashes of Vorax moving through the colony's corridors, their heightened senses attuned to every subtle sound and scent. "Thank you," Christian nodded, interpreting the Alpha's willingness to assist. He turned back to the room. "We're initiating a joint human Vorax operation to secure the colony." As the security teams mobilized, Christian received another urgent communication, this time from Captain Steele aboard the HFY Horizont. "Ambassador, long-range sensors have picked up the GEI fleet. They'll be entering the system in less than 6 hours." Christian's stomach tightened. With their defenses compromised and an unknown number of saboteurs loose in the colony, they were dangerously vulnerable to an external attack. He looked at Admiral Krelthax, weighing the risks and benefits of the Zarn's offer of alliance. The cybernetic commander returned his gaze impassively, awaiting Christian's next move. Before Christian could respond, Dr. Vance burst into the conference room, his face pale with concern. "Ambassador, we have a situation with the neural interface. The shared dreaming phenomenon among the Vorax has intensified. Some of them are experiencing a temporary loss of individual identity." The news sent a ripple of unease through the room. Inspector Zorak's antennae twitched rapidly, while Admiral Krelthax leaned forward, his interest visibly piqued. "Is this development a threat to the colony?" Christian asked, his mind racing through potential scenarios. Dr. Vance shook his head. "Not directly, but it's causing panic among some of the human colonists. A group led by Jared Hawkins is demanding we shut down the interface entirely. They fear the Vorax are losing control." Christian rubbed his temples, feeling the pressure mounting from all sides. He needed to act decisively to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. "Dr. Vance, I want you and Dr. Voss to work on stabilizing the neural interface. Find a way to maintain the Vorax's enhanced abilities while preserving their individual identities." He turned to address the room at large. "We're facing multiple crises, but we will overcome them together. Admiral Krelthax, your offer of alliance is more pertinent than ever. Inspector Zorak, I hope you'll convey to the Galactic Council the gravity of our situation and the potential ramifications for the entire galaxy." As if in response to his words, the lights in the conference room flickered ominously. The colony's compromised power grid served as a stark reminder of the immediate danger they faced. Christian's communicator buzzed again. It was Lieutenant Chen, her voice tense but controlled. "Sir, we've tracked the saboteurs to the main hydroponics facility. We're moving to engage, but they're well armed and entrenched." "Understood, Lieutenant. Use all necessary force, but try to take them alive if possible. We need answers." As Christian coordinated the colony's response to the multiple threats, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The true test of the human-Vorax alliance, and perhaps the future of galactic civilization, lay in the hours ahead. The Alpha Vorax stepped forward, its presence commanding attention even in the chaos of the moment. Through the neural interface, Christian sensed a new idea forming in the creature's mind. He focused, allowing the alien thoughts to flow into his consciousness. Images of Vorax moving through the vacuum of space flashed before his eyes. He saw them disabling enemy ships with their bare hands, their enhanced bodies adapted to survive the harsh environment of space for short periods. Christian's eyes widened as he grasped the Alpha's audacious plan. "You want to lead a space assault on the incoming GEI fleet?" The Alpha's affirmation came as a surge of drive through the link. Christian turned to Admiral Krelthax, an idea taking shape in his mind. "Admiral, I believe we may have found a unique way to counter the GEI threat, but we'll need your help." "Admiral, I believe we may have found a unique way to counter the GEI threat, but we'll need your support," Christian said, his eyes fixed on Krelthax. The Zarn Admiral's cybernetic eyes whirred as he processed the information. Elaborate, Ambassador. Christian quickly outlined the Alpha Vorax's plan for a space assault. As he spoke, the room's lighting flickered again, a stark reminder of their precarious situation. Admiral Krelthax leaned forward, his metallic fingers steepled. A bold strategy, risky but potentially effective. We can provide specialized spacesuits to enhance the Vorax's capabilities. As they finalized the details of their joint operation, Christian's communicator buzzed urgently. Captain Steele's voice came through, tense and urgent. Ambassador, long-range scanners have picked up an anomaly within the GEI fleet. There's a massive ship unlike anything we've seen before. It seems to be emitting some kind of disruptor field. Christian's blood ran cold. The superweapon. It had to be. He shared a knowing look with the Alpha Vorax, whose intelligent eyes reflected a mix of commitment and concern. Captain, keep monitoring that ship. We need all the information we can get, Christian ordered. He turned to Dr. Vance, who had been listening intently. Doctor, we need to stabilize the neural interface immediately. If that disruptor field affects our link with the Vorax strike team, we're in serious trouble. Dr. Vance nodded grimly. I'll work with Dr. Voss right away. We might be able to use the shared dreaming phenomenon to our advantage. As the scientist hurried out, Christian received another urgent communication, this time from Lieutenant Chen. Her voice crackled through, punctuated by the sound of weapons fire. Sir, we've tracked the saboteurs to the main hydroponics facility. They're well-armed and entrenched. We're moving to engage, but it's going to be tough. Christian's mind raced, weighing his options. Understood, Lieutenant. Use all necessary force, but try to take them alive if possible. We need answers. He turned back to Admiral Krelthax and Inspector Zorak, his expression grave. Gentlemen, we're facing a multi-pronged attack. I need your full cooperation to defend this colony and neutralize the GEI threat. Zorak's antenna twitched nervously, but Krelthax's cybernetic face remained impassive. The Zarn Admiral nodded slowly. You shall have it, Ambassador. The Zarn Imperium does not shy away from a worthy battle. Christian activated the colony's emergency broadcast system. His voice echoed through every corridor and hab unit of Nexus Prime. Attention, all personnel. We are initiating Emergency Protocol Delta. This is not a drill. All non-essential staff, report to your designated shelter areas. Security teams, stand by for further instructions. As the colony mobilized around them, Christian coordinated with Captain Steele to prepare the HSS Horizont for the incoming battle. The ship would provide crucial support for the Vorax strike team. In the research labs, Dr. Vance and Dr. Voss worked feverishly on the neural interface. Their breakthrough came almost by accident. The shared dreaming phenomenon had created a form of distributed processing among the Vorax, allowing them to maintain their neural link even under the strain of the GEI's disruptor field. It's like they've formed a biological quantum computer, Dr. Voss marveled, her eyes wide with excitement despite the dire circumstances. Meanwhile, on the surface of Nexus Prime, Lieutenant Chen's team closed in on the hidden communications array where the mole was attempting to transmit the colony's defensive codes to the GEI fleet. They moved silently through the underground maintenance tunnels, human intuition working in perfect harmony with Vorax sensory abilities. As they approached the array, Chen signaled her team to halt. Something wasn't right. She motioned to one of the Vorax, its enhanced senses picking up what human ears could not. The creature's eyes widened in alarm. Everyone, back, Chen shouted, but it was too late. The hidden explosive device detonated, sending a shockwave through the tunnel. The ceiling collapsed, trapping Chen and several Vorax deep underground. In space, the joint human Vorax Zarn strike team encountered the first wave of GEI defensive fighters. The enhanced Vorax, now clad in sleek Zarn-provided spacesuits, moved with incredible grace in the zero-gravity environment. They launched themselves between enemy ships, their powerful limbs tearing through hull plating and disabling key systems with surgical precision. Admiral Krelthax, observing from his command ship, couldn't hide his amazement. Remarkable, he murmured, his cybernetic eyes tracking the Vorax's movements. Simply remarkable. Back on Nexus Prime, Foreman Jack Harker had a flash of inspiration. He rushed to the colony's main power hub, a Vorax engineer hot on his heels. "We can integrate Vorax biological components with our tech," he explained breathlessly. "Create a hybrid defense grid that's resistant to EMP attacks." As Harker and his team worked to bring the new defense system online, the Alpha Vorax leading the strike team made a startling discovery. The massive GEI ship housing the superweapon bore an uncanny resemblance to ancient Vorax structures found deep underground on their homeworld. The Alpha's thoughts raced through the neural link, reaching Christian back on Nexus Prime. The implications were staggering. A possible connection between the GEI and the origins of the Vorax species. Christian's mind reeled with the new information. He turned to Dr. Kira Nomura, who had been monitoring the Vorax communication patterns. "Doctor, I need you to dig deeper into the Vorax ancestral memories. There might be a key to neutralizing that superweapon hidden in their past." As Nomura set to work, a new player entered the fray. A sleek, unidentified ship decloaked near the HSS Horizon. Its commander hailed Captain Steele, identifying himself as Xerxes, a rogue GEI operative. "I have critical information about the superweapon's vulnerabilities," Xerxes declared, his voice crackling through the comm system. "But I want asylum and protection in return, from both the GEI and the Galactic Council." Christian weighed the risks, knowing that trusting Xerxes could be dangerous, but the information he offered might be their only chance at victory. Before he could respond, the GEI fleet began its final approach to Nexus Prime. The colony's newly restored hybrid defenses flared to life, engaging the first wave of enemy ships. On the surface, enhanced Vorax took up defensive positions alongside human colonists, their shared neural link allowing for unprecedented coordination. In the command center, Dr. Vance's eyes widened as he monitored the neural interface. "Christian," he called out, his voice filled with a mix of awe and concern. "The Alpha leading the space strike team. It's made mental contact with the superweapon itself. There's some form of residual Vorax consciousness within that ship." Christian's heart raced as he processed the implications. They had a chance to disable the weapon from within, but at what cost to the Alpha's mind? As alarms blared and reports flooded in from all fronts, Christian Hill stood at the center of the storm. The fate of Nexus Prime, the human Vorax alliance, and the balance of power in the galaxy rested on his next decisions. The true test of everything they had built together was about to begin. As alarms blared and reports flooded in from all fronts, Christian Hill stood at the center of the storm. The fate of Nexus Prime, the human Vorax alliance, and the balance of power in the galaxy rested on his next decisions. The true test of everything they had built together was about to unfold. Christian's eyes darted between the various holographic displays surrounding him, each one offering a different perspective on the unfolding crisis. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. "Captain Steele," he said, his voice calm but authoritative, "grant Xerxes temporary asylum aboard the Horizon. We need that information about the superweapon." "Understood, Ambassador," Steele replied, his image flickering on the main view screen. "Xerxes is being escorted to a secure briefing room as we speak." Within minutes, Xerxes' intel was transmitted to the command center. Christian's eyes widened as he absorbed the details. "An electromagnetic pulse generator, capable of wiping out all our systems," he muttered, his mind racing. He turned to the Alpha Vorax, their shared neural link humming with activity. "We need to get aboard that ship," Christian said, both aloud and through the interface. The Alpha's agreement resonated through their connection. "Dr. Vance," Christian called out, "I need you to assemble a small infiltration team, 3 enhanced Vorax and 2 human specialists. You'll be going aboard the superweapon." Vance's face paled slightly, but he nodded resolutely. "I'll oversee the neural interface personally," he said, already moving to prepare. As the infiltration team readied themselves, chaos erupted on multiple fronts. On the surface of Nexus Prime, the newly integrated hybrid defense grid sprang to life. Streams of energy lanced out from the colony's perimeter, intercepting the first wave of GEI assault ships. Foreman Jack Harker's voice crackled over the comm system. "It's working, Ambassador. The Vorax biocomponents are adapting to the GEI's attack patterns in real time." Christian allowed himself a small smile before refocusing on the multiple crises at hand. His communicator buzzed with an incoming transmission from Lieutenant Chen. "Sir," Chen's voice was strained but determined. "We've found something. There's a hidden GEI base down here. We're moving to investigate." "Proceed with caution, Lieutenant," Christian replied. "We can't afford to lose you or your team." In space, the battle raged with increasing intensity. Admiral Krelthax's Zarn warship engaged the main GEI fleet, its advanced weapons creating a dazzling light show against the backdrop of stars. But even from the distant command center, Christian could see the Zarn ship taking heavy damage. "Admiral," Christian called out, "fall back to a defensive position, protect the horizon, and buy time for our infiltration team." Krelthax's cybernetic eyes whirred as he processed the order. "Acknowledged, Ambassador. We will hold the line." Aboard the HSS Horizont, Dr. Vance and his infiltration team prepared for their daring mission. The three enhanced Vorax moved with fluid grace in the ship's low-gravity environment, their specialized spacesuits gleaming under the harsh lights. "Remember," Vance said, addressing the team, "our primary objective is to disable the EMP generator. The Alpha will guide us through the ship's systems, but will likely face heavy resistance." As the infiltration team launched from the Horizont, Christian received another urgent transmission, this time from Dr. Lyra Voss. "Christian," Voss's voice was filled with excitement and awe. "You won't believe what we've discovered. The Vorax shared dreaming has evolved. They're accessing a collective racial memory spanning millennia." Christian listened intently as Voss explained the Vorax's true origins as bioengineered guardians created by an ancient precursor race. The implications were staggering, shedding new light on the GEI's relentless pursuit of control over the Vorax. As this revelation spread through the Vorax hive mind, Christian sensed a shift in the Alpha aboard the GEI superweapon. Through their neural link, he felt the Alpha's growing understanding and newfound sense of purpose. Suddenly, Foreman Harker's voice cut through the command center. "Ambassador, we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the upper atmosphere. The superweapon is preparing to fire." Christian's heart raced as he issued rapid-fire orders. "Initiate emergency shutdown of all non-essential systems. Activate protective measures for critical infrastructure. We have minutes at most." As the colony braced for impact, Christian's attention shifted to the infiltration team. Through the neural link, he sensed their progress through the superweapon's maze-like interior. Dr. Vance and the enhanced Vorax moved swiftly, encountering and neutralizing GEI security forces with brutal efficiency. The Alpha Vorax, now fully integrated with the ship's systems, began the painstaking process of overriding GEI control protocols. Christian felt the strain through their shared connection as the Alpha wrestled with the ancient technology. Outside, the space around Nexus Prime had become a chaotic battleground. The remaining GEI ships converged on the superweapon in a desperate attempt to regain control. Zarn, human, and Vorax forces fought side by side against the onslaught, their disparate technologies and tactics blending into a unified defense. In the command center, Christian watched the unfolding battle with a mix of awe and trepidation. The next few moments would determine not just the fate of Nexus Prime, but the future of the entire galaxy. As the energy buildup from the superweapon reached critical levels, Christian silently urged the infiltration team onward, knowing that their success or failure would shape the course of history. The command center fell silent, all eyes fixed on the holographic displays. The infiltration team had reached the superweapon's core. Now, it all came down to Dr. Vance's ability to disable the EMP generator and the team's capacity to hold off the incoming GEI forces long enough to complete their mission. Christian leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the command console. Through the neural link, he sensed the Alpha Vorax's intense concentration as it worked in tandem with Dr. Vance, guiding him through the alien systems. The fate of Nexus Prime hung in the balance, with the future of the human Vorax alliance, and perhaps all of galactic civilization, resting on the outcome of this high-stakes endeavor. Operation. Inside the superweapon, Dr. Elias Vance and his infiltration team pushed forward through a maze of alien corridors. The Alpha Vorax, fully integrated with the ship's systems, guided them telepathically. Vance's breath came in short bursts as he sprinted alongside the enhanced Vorax, their specialized suits allowing for swift movement in the low-gravity environment. EMP control room, 200 meters ahead. The Alpha's thoughts resonated through their shared neural link. As they rounded a corner, a squad of GEI security forces opened fire. Energy bolts sizzled past Vance's head, leaving scorch marks on the metallic walls. The enhanced Vorax sprang into action, their powerful limbs propelling them across the corridor with inhuman speed. Vance watched in awe as the creatures engaged the GEI forces in close-quarters combat. One Vorax used its elongated arms to swing from an overhead pipe, delivering a devastating kick to a GEI soldier's chest. Another grappled with two opponents simultaneously, its enhanced strength evident as it effortlessly tossed them aside. "We need to keep moving," Vance shouted, ducking under a volley of enemy fire. On the surface of Nexus Prime, Foreman Jack Harker stood before a massive control panel, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. The hybrid defense grid hummed to life, a fusion of human ingenuity and Vorax biological components. Energy signatures detected, a Vorax engineer reported, its multifaceted eyes scanning incoming data. Multiple GEI assault ships approaching Vector 227. Harker nodded, his face set with unwavering determination. "Let's see what this system can do." As the first wave of GEI ships entered range, the defense grid sprang into action. Streams of pulsating energy erupted from the colony's perimeter, slamming into the approaching vessels. The Vorax biocomponents adapted in real time, adjusting the energy output to counter the GEI's evasive maneuvers. Harker allowed himself a small smile as the first enemy ship spiraled out of control, trailing smoke and debris. "That's it," he muttered. "Keep them off our backs." Deep beneath the colony's surface, Lieutenant Daria Chen and her team moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors of the hidden GEI base. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and machinery. "Over here!" one of Chen's Vorax companions called out, its voice a low rumble. Chen approached a massive computer terminal, its screens flickering with streams of data. Her eyes widened as she scanned the information. "This is it," she breathed. "GEI operations across the entire galaxy." Without hesitation, Chen plugged in a data drive and began the download process. The terminal beeped in protest, security protocols activating. "We've got company," another team member warned, raising his weapon as the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridors. Chen's fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing security measures. "Just need a few more minutes," she said through gritted teeth. In orbit above Nexus Prime, Admiral Krelthax stood on the bridge of his crippled Zarn warship. Alarms blared as systems failed one by one. The view screen showed a relentless barrage of GEI fire pounding against their weakening shields. Krelthax's cybernetic eyes whirred as he assessed the situation. He turned to his first officer, mandibles clicking with determination. "Evacuate the ship. I will remain to ensure our final act serves a purpose." As the crew rushed to escape pods, Krelthax took manual control of the vessel. With expert precision, he maneuvered the dying warship towards the heart of the GEI fleet. "For Nexus Prime," he said softly, engaging the engines to full power. The Zarn warship streaked across space, a burning comet aimed at the densest concentration of GEI vessels. Krelthax closed his eyes as impact neared, his final act clearing a path for the human forces. Aboard the HSS Horizont, Captain Marcus Steele worked feverishly with Xerxes, the rogue GEI operative. Holographic displays surrounded them, showing schematics of the superweapon. "There," Xerxes pointed, his voice urgent. "The power distribution network has a critical flaw. If we can overload this junction, it should create a cascading failure." Steele nodded, immediately opening a channel to the colony's command center. "Christian, we've found a weakness. Transmitting data now." In the superweapons control room, Dr. Vance and his team finally reached their objective. The EMP generator loomed before them, a pulsating orb of energy suspended in a complex framework of alien technology. As they approached, a voice called out from the shadows. "Stop right there." Dr. Morcant, the GEI's lead scientist, stepped into view, his hands raised in surrender. "I can help you disable it," he said, his eyes darting nervously between Vance and the Vorax. in exchange for amnesty. Vance hesitated, weighing the risks against the urgency of their mission. Through the neural link, he sensed the Alpha Vorax's cautious agreement. "All right," Vance said, gesturing for Morkant to approach the controls. "But one wrong move, and—" He left the threat unspoken as the enhanced Vorax moved into position, their powerful forms a clear deterrent against any potential betrayal. As Morkant began working on the EMP generator, Vance received the transmission from the Horizont. The weakness in the power distribution network could be the key to their success. Outside, the battle for Nexus Prime raged on multiple fronts. The colony's hybrid defenses held strong against waves of GEI assault ships, while in orbit, the sacrifice of Admiral Krellthax had created a temporary advantage for the Allied forces. Inside the superweapon, the Alpha Vorax continued its mental struggle with the ship's AI, fighting for control of the massive vessel. The outcome of this silent battle, combined with the efforts of Dr. Vance's team, would determine the fate of Nexus Prime and the balance of power in the galaxy. As alarms blared and systems fluctuated, the infiltration team raced against time to disable the EMP generator before it could fire. The future hung in the balance, with every passing second bringing them closer to either victory or annihilation. Catastrophe or triumph. The tension in the control room was palpable as Christian received an urgent update from Dr. Vance. "We've reached the EMP generator," Vance's voice crackled through the comm. "But there's a complication." Christian leaned forward, his brow furrowing. "What kind of complication?" "Dr. Morkant is here. He's offered to help disable the generator in exchange for amnesty." Christian's mind raced, weighing the risks against the pressing need for success. "Proceed with caution, Vance. We need that generator offline, but watch him closely." As Vance and Morkant worked to disable the EMP generator, the Alpha Vorax's mental battle with the ship's AI intensified. Through their neural link, Christian sensed the creature's strain as it grappled with the ancient technology. Suddenly, the Alpha's consciousness expanded, accessing previously hidden systems within the superweapon. A flood of information poured through the link, overwhelming Christian's senses. "The ship!" Christian gasped, gripping the edge of the command console. "It's not just a weapon. It's a repository of knowledge about the Vorax's creators." Foreman Harker spun to face him, eyes wide. "What does that mean for us?" Before Christian could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. Harker's attention snapped back to his console. "GEI forces breaching the outer defenses. They're making a push for the main power generator." Christian's mind raced, trying to process the influx of information from the Alpha, while coordinating the colony's defense. "Harker, take a team and reinforce the generator. Use the neural link to coordinate with the Vorax units." As Harker rushed to organize the defense, Christian received another urgent transmission, this time from Lieutenant Chen. "Sir, we've completed the data download from the GEI hub," Chen reported, her voice tense. "But we've found something else. A hidden chamber with weapons designed specifically to target Vorax physiology." Christian's blood ran cold. "Get that intel back to the command center immediately. We need to know what we're dealing with." The situation grew more complex by the second. Christian's attention was pulled in multiple directions as reports flooded in from all fronts of the battle. In orbit, Captain Steele's voice cut through the chaos. "Christian, we've identified a weakness in the superweapon's shields. We're moving into position for a precision strike." "Do it," Christian ordered. "And prepare a boarding team. Dr. Vance might need reinforcements." As the HSS Horizont maneuvered into position, Christian received yet another critical update, this time from Dr. Voss. "We've found the artifact," Voss exclaimed, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and awe. "It's emitting some kind of energy pulse. The Vorax, they're changing." Before Christian could inquire further, a priority message from the Galactic Council flashed across his screen. His heart sank as he read the warning of an incoming peacekeeping fleet. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as Christian issued rapid-fire orders, trying to keep all the pieces in play. The fate of Nexus Prime hung in the balance, with multiple critical operations unfolding simultaneously. On board the superweapon, Dr. Vance and Dr. Morkant worked feverishly to disable the EMP generator. The ship's systems fluctuated wildly around them, a side effect of the Alpha Vorax's ongoing struggle with the AI. "We need to reroute the power through the auxiliary conduits," Morkant shouted over the blaring alarms. "Otherwise, we risk a catastrophic overload." Vance nodded, his fingers flying across the alien control panel. Through the neural link, he felt the Alpha's presence grow stronger, more focused. Suddenly, the ship's systems stabilized, interfaces reconfiguring before their eyes. "What's happening?" Vance asked, watching in awe as new information flooded the screens. The Alpha's thoughts resonated in his mind. "The ship recognizes me. It's changing." On the surface of Nexus Prime, Foreman Harker led the defense of the main power generator. The neural link allowed him to coordinate complex maneuvers with the Vorax units, creating an ever-shifting defensive line. "Use those maintenance panels as shields," Harker shouted, pointing to a stack of heavy metal plates. 2 Vorax immediately complied, their enhanced strength allowing them to lift and position the makeshift barricades with ease. As another wave of GI forces advanced, Harker felt a surge of energy through the neural link. The Vorax around him seemed to move faster, strike harder. He watched in amazement as one creature leapt an impossible distance, taking down 3 GI soldiers in a single fluid motion. Deep beneath the colony, Lieutenant Chen and her team raced through the corridors, the stolen GEI data secured in their possession. As they neared the exit, Chen's communicator crackled to life. "Lieutenant, be advised," Christian's voice came through. "The artifact has been activated. Vorax abilities are enhanced. Prepare for potential physiological changes in your team." Chen glanced at her Vorax companions, noting the newfound intensity in their movements. "Understood, sir. We're en route to the command center with the intel." In orbit, Captain Steele guided the HSS Horizont into position, Xerxes at his side providing critical information on the superweapon's defenses. "Fire control, target locked," Steele announced. "Executing precision strike now." A concentrated beam of energy lanced out from the Horizont, striking the superweapon's shields at their weakest point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small section of the massive ship's defenses flickered and failed. "Shield breach confirmed," Xerxes reported. "You have approximately 3 minutes before their systems adapt and close the gap." Steele nodded grimly. "Boarding team, you have your window. Make it count." As the various fronts of the battle converged, Christian stood at the heart of the command center, coordinating the multifaceted operation. The neural link hummed with activity, connecting him to the enhanced Vorax, the infiltration team, and the Alpha aboard the superweapon. Through this complex web of connections, Christian sensed a shift in the tide of battle. The Vorax's newfound abilities were turning the ground combat in their favor. In orbit, Steele's precision strike had created an opportunity to board the superweapon. But even as hope began to rise, a new threat emerged. A priority alert flashed across Christian's screen, accompanied by a chilling message. "Attention, Nexus Prime," a cold voice announced. "This is the Supreme Commander of the GEI. Our stealth ship is in position near your moon. Surrender now, or we'll detonate the antimatter bombs hidden throughout your colony." Christian's blood ran cold as he realized the full implications of this new development. The battle for Nexus Prime had entered its most critical phase, with the fate of the colony, the human-Vorax alliance, and the balance of power in the galaxy hanging in the balance. As alarms blared and reports flooded in from all fronts, Christian knew that his next decision would shape the course of history. The command center fell silent, all eyes turning to him, waiting for the order that would determine their future. Fate. The weight of responsibility settled on Christian's shoulders as he made his decision. "We're not surrendering," he declared, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Lieutenant Chen, assemble a specialized team. Your mission is to locate and disarm those antimatter bombs." Chen nodded sharply, her eyes gleaming with willpower. "Understood, sir. We'll use the data from the GEI hub to guide our search." Christian turned to Foreman Harker. "Jack, maintain pressure on the GEI superweapon. We need to keep them occupied while Chen's team works." As the command center erupted into action, Christian felt a surge of energy through the neural link. The enhanced Vorax abilities, amplified by the artifact's pulse, offered a glimmer of hope in their desperate situation. Lieutenant Chen moved swiftly, gathering her team and equipping them with portable scanners, calibrated to detect the unique radiation signature of antimatter. As they prepared to depart, she addressed her squad, which included several Vorax with heightened sensory abilities. "We'll sweep the colony sector by sector," Chen explained, pulling up a holographic map. "Vorax team members, use your enhanced senses to detect any anomalies. Human operatives, stay alert for GEI stragglers. We're on a timer, people. Move fast, but stay cautious." As Chen's team dispersed into the colony's winding corridors, the situation aboard the GEI superweapon took an unexpected turn. Dr. Vance and Dr. Morkant watched in astonishment as the ship's internal structure began to shift and pulse with organic-looking conduits. "What in the name of science is happening?" Morkant gasped, his eyes wide as he watched a nearby wall ripple and reform. Vance felt the Alpha Vorax's presence surge through the neural link. "The ship is transforming," he murmured, adapting to the Alpha's control. The metamorphosis complicated their efforts to discharge the EMP generator safely. Vance studied the newly formed organic conduits, an idea forming in his mind. "Morkant, look at these new pathways," he said, pointing to the pulsing structures. "If we reroute the accumulated energy through them, we could disperse it harmlessly into space," Morkant finished, nodding in agreement. "It's risky, but it might be our only option." As they worked to implement their improvised solution, the battle on the surface of Nexus Prime intensified. Foreman Harker coordinated with the enhanced Vorax, using the neural link to orchestrate complex maneuvers against the remaining GEI forces. "Bravo, team! Flank left!" Harker shouted, his voice carrying over the din of combat. "Charlie team! Provide cover fire!" The Vorax moved with incredible speed and precision, their amplified abilities allowing them to perform feats that defied human expectations. One massive creature uprooted an entire section of terrain, using it as a makeshift shield to protect a group of human defenders. In orbit, Captain Steele guided the HSS Horizont towards the GEI stealth ship, his fists tight with dedication. "Boarding team, prepare for immediate deployment," Steele announced over the ship's comm system. "Our target is the GEI Supreme Commander. Neutralize their ability to detonate those bombs at all costs." As the Horizont maneuvered into position, Steele felt a mix of anticipation and dread. The success of their mission could mean the difference between victory and annihilation for Nexus Prime. Back in the colony, Lieutenant Chen's team made swift progress, clearing sector after sector. The enhanced Vorax proved invaluable, their heightened senses allowing them to detect subtle energy fluctuations that might indicate the presence of an antimatter bomb. "Contact 2 o'clock, a Vorax scout called out, its multifaceted eyes fixed on a seemingly innocuous storage unit. Chen approached cautiously, her scanner confirming the Vorax's detection. "Good work," she said, kneeling to examine the device. "All right, people, this is what we've trained for. Let's disarm this thing and move on to the next." As her team worked to neutralize the first bomb, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The ease of their initial success felt almost too convenient. In the depths of the colony, Dr. Voss continued her examination of the ancient Vorax artifact. Its pulsing energy had intensified, creating a web of luminescent patterns across its surface. As she studied the shifting designs, a realization struck her. "Christian," she called over the comm link, her voice tinged with excitement. "I think I've found a way to amplify the artifact's energy output. If we coordinate with the Vorax throughout the colony, we could create a living communication grid." Christian's response was immediate. "Do it, Lyra. Anything that gives us an edge right now is worth pursuing." As Dr. Voss began implementing her plan, the incoming Galactic Council peacekeeping fleet entered the system. Christian, recognizing the potential for disastrous misunderstanding, turned to Dr. Nomura. "Kira, we need to establish communication with that fleet immediately," he said urgently. "Use the enhanced Vorax network to broadcast our situation. We can't risk them misinterpreting what's happening here." Dr. Nomura nodded, her fingers flying across her console as she compiled a comprehensive data package, explaining the human-Vorax alliance and the true nature of the conflict. Aboard the GEI superweapon, The Alpha Vorax's integration with the ship's AI reached a critical point. The vessel, now more organic than mechanical, responded to the Alpha's will as if it were an extension of its own body. With a thought, the Alpha initiated the ship's defensive systems, creating a shimmering barrier around Nexus Prime that blocked incoming GEI reinforcements. As the multiple fronts of the conflict converged, the fate of Nexus Prime hung in the balance. The actions of Christian Hill and his divided forces in the next crucial moments would determine not only the outcome of the battle, but the future of the Human Vorax Alliance in the Galactic community. Community stage as never before. Christian took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. "Status report," he commanded, his voice cutting through the tension in the command center. Dr. Nomura's fingers flew across her console. "Communication established with the Galactic Council fleet, sir. They're reviewing our data package now." Christian nodded, turning his attention to the holographic display of Nexus Prime and its surroundings. The battle raged across multiple fronts, each one a potential turning point in the conflict. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Command, we've neutralized 3 more antimatter bombs, but the remaining devices are becoming unstable." Christian's brow furrowed. "Understood, Lieutenant. What's your assessment?" "Sir, we need to shift our strategy. Disarming these bombs is becoming too risky. I recommend we focus on containment instead." "Agreed," Christian replied. "Use the Vorax enhanced force field technology to isolate the bombs, minimize potential damage at all costs." As Chen acknowledged the order, Christian's attention shifted to the orbital battle. The transformed GEI superweapon, now more organic than mechanical, pulsed with otherworldly energy. Through the neural link, he sensed the Alpha Vorax's growing control over the vessel. Aboard the superweapon, Dr. Vance and Dr. Morcant worked feverishly to complete their improvised energy dispersal system. The ship's interior writhed and shifted around them, organic conduits replacing metal and circuitry. "Elias, look!" Morcant exclaimed, pointing to a newly formed cluster of pulsing veins. "If we route the EMP energy through these—" Vance nodded, understanding immediately. "It could disperse harmlessly into space. Let's do it." They activated the system, holding their breath as the accumulated energy surged through the organic pathways. Outside, a brilliant display of electromagnetic auroras blossomed in the void, visible even from the planet's surface. On Nexus Prime, Foreman Harker coordinated the final push against the GEI ground forces. The enhanced Vorax moved with supernatural grace and power, their abilities amplified by Dr. Voss's artifact-powered network. "Bravo, team! Collapse that building!" Harker shouted, pointing to a GEI stronghold. 2 massive Vorax responded instantly, using their immense strength to bring the structure down on the enemy position. The remaining GEI troops, faced with the Vorax's unprecedented display of power, began throwing down their weapons. Harker allowed himself a grim smile as he watched the enemy's will to fight crumble. In orbit, Captain Steele led his boarding party through the corridors of the GEI stealth ship. The close quarters echoed with the sounds of intense combat as they fought their way towards the bridge. "Watch your 6, Steele called out, ducking under a swipe from a GEI guard. A Vorax combat specialist leapt over him, tackling the guard with inhuman speed. As they neared the bridge, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Steele's tactical display flashed with warnings of increasing spatial distortions. "The ship's going to tear itself apart," he muttered. "All units, fall back to defensive positions. I'm going for the command console." Steele pushed forward alone, his heart pounding as he burst onto the bridge. The GEI Supreme Commander stood before the main console, a look of cold perseverance on his face. "It's over," Steele declared, raising his weapon. "Shut down the self-destruct sequence." The commander's response was a sneer and a lightning-fast lunge. Steele barely managed to dodge, his weapon clattering to the floor as they engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Back on Nexus Prime, Dr. Voss's artifact pulsed with increasing intensity. The network of enhanced Vorax spread throughout the colony, their combined abilities creating a living communication grid. "Christian," Dr. Voss called over the comm, "the artifact's energy output is spiking. We can use this to boost our transmission to the Galactic Council fleet." "Do it," Christian ordered. Dr. Nomura, prepare another data package. We need to make sure they understand the full situation. As the battle reached its climax, the Alpha Vorax exerted its full control over the transformed superweapon. Tendrils of living metal extended from the ship, forming a network of orbital platforms around Nexus Prime. Christian watched in awe as the platforms came online, creating a protective web around the colony. The defensive capabilities of Nexus Prime surged, the new orbital network pulsing with the same energy as the superweapon. Suddenly, an urgent communication came through from the HS Horizon. Command, we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the GEI stealth ship's core. The self-destruct sequence is nearing its final stage. Christian's mind raced, formulating a plan. He reached out through the neural link, connecting with the Alpha Vorax. Can you use the superweapon's organic systems to contain the explosion? The Alpha's response came not in words, but in a surge of determined energy. The superweapon's tendrils began to shift, reorienting towards the stealth ship. On the stealth ship's bridge, Captain Steele grappled with the GEI Supreme Commander. The ship shuddered around them, sections of the hull buckling under the strain of the spatial distortions. Steele managed to land a solid blow, stunning the commander momentarily. He lunged for the console, his fingers flying across the unfamiliar controls as he sought to halt the self-destruct sequence. As the various fronts of the battle converged, the fate of Nexus Prime hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine not only the outcome of the conflict, but the future of human-Vorax relations in the galaxy. Galactic Community. The battle reached its crescendo as Captain Steele grappled with the GEI Supreme Commander on the bridge of the failing stealth ship. Alarms blared and the metal groaned under the strain of spatial distortions. Steele's combat training kicked in as he landed a series of precise strikes, finally subduing his opponent. With seconds to spare, Steele lunged for the command console, his fingers flying across the controls as he initiated the abort sequence for the self-destruct mechanism. Relief washed over him as the countdown halted, but it was short-lived. The ship's systems, damaged beyond repair, continued to deteriorate. Steele's mind raced as he assessed the situation. "All units, evacuate immediately," he ordered over the comm. "I'm staying behind to manually override the critical systems." As his team retreated, Steele worked feverishly to stabilize the ship's core. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he rerouted power and vented overloading energy conduits. Every second bought was crucial, but he knew a complete meltdown could still spell disaster for Nexus Prime. On the transformed GEI superweapon, Christian Hill reached out through the neural link to the Alpha Vorax. The massive creature's consciousness merged with the ship's organic systems, extending tendrils of living metal towards the failing stealth ship. Christian watched in awe as a containment field began to form around the stricken vessel. "Status report on the field integrity," he demanded. Dr. Vance's voice crackled over the comm. "The organic structure is adapting, Christian. It's creating multiple layers, each designed to absorb different types of energy from a potential explosion." On Nexus Prime's surface, Lieutenant Chen's team shifted focus. With the remaining antimatter bombs contained, they turned their attention to emergency evacuation procedures. Enhanced Vorax moved with incredible speed, their strength amplified by the ancient artifact's energy as they constructed fortified shelters throughout the colony. Foreman Harker, having secured the GEI surrender, now directed his efforts towards modifying transport vehicles. "Reinforce those radiation shields," he barked at a team of human engineers and Vorax. "We need to be prepared for anything." In the colony's command center, Dr. Nomura worked frantically to maintain communications. The energy output from the containment field created significant interference, threatening to cut off Nexus Prime from its allies. "Christian," she called out, "we're losing long-range comms. I'm working on a workaround using the Vorax's signaling abilities, but it's going to take time." Christian nodded grimly. The situation was reaching a critical point. With a heavy heart, he made the decision to initiate a partial evacuation of the colony's most vulnerable areas. "Begin immediate evacuation of sectors 7 through 12, he ordered. "Priority on children, elderly, and essential personnel." As the evacuation began, Christian turned his attention back to the orbital crisis. Captain Steele's voice, strained and filled with static, came through the comm system. "Core stable for now, but the ship's breaking apart. I've done all I can here." Christian's heart raced as he watched Steele fight his way through the collapsing corridors of the stealth ship. Through the neural link, he sensed the Alpha Vorax's intent. A specialized organic tendril extended from the superweapon, snaking towards Steele's location in a desperate attempt to create an escape route. "Hold on, Captain," Christian urged. "We're coming for you." The next few moments would determine not only Steele's fate, but the safety of the entire colony. As the stealth ship began to break apart within the containment field, Christian could only watch and hope that their combined efforts would be enough to avert disaster. On the surface, Lieutenant Chen coordinated the movement of thousands of colonists to the fortified safe zones. The enhanced Vorax worked tirelessly, their abilities pushing the limits of what seemed possible. Massive structures were moved in minutes, creating a network of shelters that spread across the colony like a web. Foreman Harker's voice cut through the chaos. "Planetary defense systems online and at full power," he reported. "We're ready for any debris or energy discharge that might make it through the orbital field." As the evacuation continued and the orbital crisis reached its peak, the Human Vorax Alliance faced its greatest test. The combined efforts of soldiers, scientists, and the enhanced Vorax had brought them this far, but the final outcome remained uncertain. The next few moments would determine not just their immediate survival, but the future of their partnership in a galaxy that watched with breathless expectation. Anticipation. The fate of Captain Steele and the stealth ship hung in the balance as the organic tendril from the superweapon stretched towards the failing vessel. Through the neural link, Christian felt the Alpha Vorax's persistence as it guided the living metal through space. The tendril breached the stealth ship's hull with surgical precision, creating a temporary airlock in the collapsing structure. "Steele, your window is open," Christian called out urgently. "Move now!" On the disintegrating bridge, Steele sprinted towards the newly formed opening. Sparks flew from ruptured conduits, and the deck plates groaned beneath his feet. With a final burst of speed, he leapt into the pulsating organic tube. The tendril retracted rapidly, pulling Steele to safety as the stealth ship's structure finally gave way. Christian watched the feed from the superweapon, his heart racing as Steele was whisked away from the explosion. The stealth ship detonated within the confines of the containment field. Multiple layers of energy-absorbing barriers lit up in rapid succession, each one dissipating a portion of the massive power release. The spectacle was both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a testament to the combined capabilities of human ingenuity and Vorax biology. Despite the effectiveness of the containment, a significant amount of energy escaped, creating a shockwave that propagated towards Nexus Prime. Christian's mind raced as he assessed the potential impact on the colony. "Lieutenant Chen," he called out over the comm, "brace for impact. The shockwave is heading your way." On the planet's surface, Chen redoubled her efforts to move the remaining colonists to safety. Enhanced Vorax worked alongside human volunteers, their strength and coordination amplified beyond normal limits. They lifted heavy debris and guided frightened civilians with equal ease. "Move it, people!" Chen shouted, her voice carrying over the din of the evacuation. "We've got incoming!" As the shockwave approached, Foreman Harker stood at the colony's main control center, his fingers hovering over the activation switch for the planetary defense system. Sweat beaded on his brow as he watched the energy signature grow on his display. "Deflectors online," Harker announced, throwing the switch. A network of energy barriers sprang to life around key areas of the settlement, their Vorax-enhanced emitters humming with power. The shockwave struck Nexus Prime's atmosphere with a brilliant flash of light. Ionization cascaded across the sky, creating a dazzling and terrifying light show. The colony's defense grid strained under the assault, several outlying deflector nodes overloading in rapid succession. Inside the fortified safe zones, colonists huddled together as the ground shook beneath them. The Vorax-enhanced structures held firm, their bio-integrated materials flexing and adapting to the stress. In orbit, the Galactic Council, peacekeeping fleet bore the brunt of the explosion's aftermath. Several ships suffered damage from the intense radiation and debris field. The Council's flagship, its advanced shielding technology pushed to the limit, maintained its protective position above Nexus Prime. As the immediate danger passed, Christian shifted his focus to damage assessment. "Dr. Nomura, what's our status?" Kira Nomura's fingers flew across her console as she compiled the incoming data. "We've lost communication with several outlying sectors, but the core systems are holding. The Vorax-enhanced infrastructure proved remarkably resilient." Christian nodded, a mix of relief and perseverance on his face. "Dispatch recovery teams to the affected areas. Prioritize critical infrastructure and medical facilities." Teams of human engineers and Vorax specialists moved out across the colony, clearing debris and repairing damaged systems with unprecedented speed and efficiency. The enhanced Vorax proved invaluable, their strength and adaptability allowing them to tackle tasks that would have taken days and mere hours. Aboard the transformed superweapon, Dr. Vance and Dr. Morkant pored over the flood of data from the containment event. Elias Vance's eyes widened as he noticed an anomaly in the readings. "Look at this, Sarah," he said, pointing to a series of fluctuating energy signatures. The ship's organic systems didn't just absorb the energy from the explosion, they're processing it, integrating it somehow. Dr. Morkant leaned in, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This could revolutionize our understanding of energy manipulation and storage. The implications for future technology are staggering." As the scientists delved deeper into their analysis, Captain Steele was rushed to the colony's medical facilities. The medical staff, a mix of human doctors and Vorax healers, worked in perfect synchronization to assess his condition. Dr. Lena Torres, the chief medical officer, approached Christian as he entered the infirmary. "Captain Steele is stable," she reported. "He's suffering from minor radiation exposure and some internal bruising, but nothing our combined medical knowledge can't handle." Christian nodded, relief evident on his face. "He saved us all with his actions on that ship. Make sure he receives the best care possible." As news of Steele's heroics spread through the colony, human and Vorax alike gathered to express their gratitude. The captain's successful collaboration with the Alpha Vorax in his rescue became a powerful symbol of what their alliance could achieve. In orbit, the Alpha Vorax, its connection to the superweapon stronger than ever, began to use the ship's newly enhanced capabilities to assist in the cleanup efforts. Organic tendrils extended towards the planet, clearing orbital debris and providing support to damaged satellite systems. Christian watched the delicate operation from the colony's command center, marveling at the precision and control displayed by the Vorax. As he observed the recovery efforts, a priority communication alert flashed on his screen. The Galactic Council representatives were requesting a formal meeting to discuss the recent events. Christian knew that the effectiveness of the Human-Vorax alliance had not gone unnoticed, and the Council's interest could bring both opportunities and challenges. As he prepared for the meeting, Christian reflected on the incredible developments of the past few hours. The crisis had been averted, but the true test of their alliance was just beginning. With new technologies to explore, enhanced Vorax abilities to understand, and the watchful eyes of the galaxy upon them, Nexus Prime stood at the threshold of a new era. The colony had survived its greatest challenge yet, but as Christian looked out over the recovering settlement, he knew that their journey was a long way to go. The Human-Vorax alliance had proven its worth in battle, but now they faced the equally daunting task of building a lasting peace and carving out their place in the galactic community. Community in the galaxy had only just begun. As Christian contemplated the challenges ahead, an urgent message flashed across his console. "Governor Hill," Dr. Nomura's voice crackled through the comm system. "We've detected an anomaly on our long-range sensors. You need to see this." Christian hurried to the command center, where he found Dr. Nomura and her team hunched over a holographic display. The image showed a cluster of unknown objects approaching Nexus Prime at an alarming speed. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" Christian asked, his eyes fixed on the pulsating dots. Dr. Nomura adjusted her glasses, her fingers dancing across the controls. "We're not entirely sure, sir. Their energy signatures don't match anything in our database. But there's something familiar about their propulsion system." As the team continued to analyze the incoming data, Christian called for an emergency meeting with key personnel. Within minutes, the command center was filled with the colony's leadership, including Dr. Vance, Foreman Harker, Lieutenant Chen, and the newly recovered Captain Steele. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian began, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. We have a situation developing. An unknown fleet is approaching our system, and we need to prepare for all possibilities. Dr. Vance stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Governor, I've been analyzing the energy readings from these ships. There are striking similarities to the ancient Vorax artifact we discovered. This could be a monumental opportunity for scientific advancement. Foreman Harker nodded in agreement. If we can harness that kind of technology, it could revolutionize our power generation capabilities. We could combine it with the energized crystals we found near the colony. Lieutenant Chen, ever cautious, raised her hand. While I agree this could be an opportunity, we can't ignore the potential threat. We should mobilize our defenses and implement new security protocols, especially considering the enhanced abilities of our Vorax allies. Christian listened intently to each perspective, weighing the potential risks and benefits. Agreed on all counts. Dr. Nomura, continue your attempts to establish communication. Captain Steele, I want you to coordinate our defensive operations. Use the transformed superweapon if necessary, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. As the team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Dr. Lyra Voss burst into the room, her face flushed with excitement. Governor Hill, I've made a breakthrough with the ancient artifact. There's a hidden compartment containing data crystals. The information they hold, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. Christian's eyes widened. What kind of information? It's a comprehensive history of the Vorax and the precursor race that created them, Dr. Voss explained, her words tumbling out rapidly. This could be crucial for understanding who these newcomers are and how to interact with them. As the colony buzzed with activity, preparing for the potential encounter, Christian received word that the Galactic Council had dispatched additional peacekeeping ships to Nexus Prime. Their request to observe the upcoming meeting was a diplomatic minefield, but one Christian knew he couldn't avoid. Very well, he said to the council representative on the comm. You may observe, but this is our operation. We'll handle first contact. Hours passed as the unknown fleet drew closer. Foreman Harker oversaw the rapid construction of a secure meeting facility on the colony's outskirts, marveling at the enhanced Vorax's ability to complete the structure in record time. As the lead ship of the alien fleet began its descent towards the designated meeting site, Christian assembled his team. Dr. Vance, Lieutenant Chen, and the Alpha Vorax stood beside him, each representing a crucial aspect of Nexus Prime's unique community. The ship that landed was unlike anything they had ever seen, a seamless blend of organic and mechanical components that seemed to pulse with life. As the landing ramp extended, Christian took a deep breath, steadying himself for what was to come. The beings that emerged were tall and elegant, their bodies adorned with intricate glowing markings. Their resemblance to the Vorax was unmistakable, yet they carried themselves with an air of ancient wisdom that commanded respect. The leader of the group stepped forward, its movements fluid and purposeful. It raised a hand in a gesture that mirrored ancient Vorax greeting rituals, causing a ripple of excitement among the observing Vorax population. Christian stepped forward, mirroring the gesture as best he could. On behalf of Nexus Prime and the United Earth Government, I welcome you to our world, he said, hoping that Dr. Nomura's translation algorithms were working correctly. The alien leader tilted its head, studying Christian with eyes that seemed to glow from within. When it spoke, its voice was a melodious blend of sounds that resonated on multiple levels. We are the Zikrith, the translation came through Christian's earpiece. We have traveled far, following the echoes of our long-lost children. It seems we have much to discuss, young ones of Earth and Vorax. As the two groups faced each other, the air crackled with potential. The future of Nexus Prime, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance of this historic meeting. The air crackled with potential as Christian Hill and his team maintained a cautious but open stance. Zareth, the leader of the alien group, stepped forward, his movements fluid and graceful. He initiated a greeting ritual that bore a striking resemblance to ancient Vorax customs, confirming the suspected evolutionary link between the two species. We come in peace. Zareth's melodious voice resonated through the translation devices. and we bring knowledge of our shared past. The alien leader presented Christian with a small, iridescent crystal. This data crystal contains information about our history with the Vorax and the purpose of our journey to your world. Dr. Lyra Voss's eyes widened as she examined the crystal. It's compatible with the technology we found in the ancient Vorax artifact, she exclaimed, her fingers already working to interface the crystal with their systems. As the initial meeting progressed peacefully, the calm was suddenly shattered by a series of alarms blaring from the colony's command center. Dr. Nomura's voice crackled over the comm system, her tone urgent. Governor Hill, we have multiple contacts entering the system. It's GEI ships. The remaining Galactic Exploration Initiative forces, seeking revenge for their earlier defeat, launched a surprise attack on both Nexus Prime and the alien fleet. Explosions lit up the sky as the first volley of GEI weapons found their marks. Christian's mind raced as he assessed the situation. He turned to Zareth, their eyes meeting in a moment of unspoken understanding. It seems we have a common enemy, Christian said. Will you stand with us? Zareth nodded, his expression resolute. Our fates are intertwined. We will fight alongside you. Within moments, the impromptu alliance sprang into action. Captain Marcus Steele, still bearing the marks of his recent ordeal, took command of the transformed superweapon. His voice, steady and confident, echoed through the communication channels as he coordinated with Zareth's fleet to establish a defensive perimeter around Nexus Prime. On the planet's surface, the enhanced Vorax moved with incredible speed and precision, activating the colony's defense systems. A shimmering energy shield blossomed outward, enveloping the entire settlement in a protective cocoon. Dr. Elias Vance and Foreman Jack Harker worked feverishly to integrate the alien technology with Nexus Prime's power grid. If we can channel the energy from those crystalline formations we discovered, Vance shouted over the din of alarms, we might be able to amplify our defensive capabilities exponentially. Harker nodded, his hands flying over the controls. I'm rerouting power now. Get ready for a surge. As they worked, a network of energy weapons materialized across the colony, their barrels tracking incoming GEI ships with uncanny accuracy. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out, cutting through the attackers' shields with ease. Lieutenant Daria Chen led a mixed team of human and Vorax ground forces to repel GEI dropships that managed to breach the planetary defenses. The enhanced Vorax moved like living shadows, their strength and speed overwhelming the GEI troops. Chen watched in awe as a Vorax warrior effortlessly lifted a crashed dropship, using it as a shield against enemy fire. In orbit, the transformed superweapon under Captain Steele's command proved its worth. Organic tendrils, pulsing with energy, lashed out to ensnare multiple GEI battleships. The captured vessels struggled futilely as the tendrils tightened, crushing hull plating and disabling vital systems. Zareth's fleet unleashed weapons unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Beams of pure energy, seemingly drawn from the very stars themselves, lanced out to decimate the GEI's larger capital ships. The space around Nexus Prime became a graveyard of shattered hulls and dispersing energy fields. As the battle raged, Dr. Kira Nomura made a startling discovery while analyzing the data crystal provided by Zareth. Her eyes widened as she deciphered the ancient information. Governor Hill, she called out, her voice filled with excitement. There's an ancient defensive system hidden beneath Nexus Prime's surface. It was designed by the precursor race that created both the Vorax and Zareth species. Christian's mind raced with the implications. Can we activate it? Possibly, Nomura replied, but it will require a team to descend into an underground complex. The data provides directions, but there are likely to be security measures and puzzles left by the precursors. Without hesitation, Christian assembled a team consisting of himself, Dr. Voss, the Alpha Vorax, and two of Zareth's engineers. They descended into a previously undiscovered underground facility, following the cryptic directions provided by the data crystal. The ancient complex was a marvel of engineering, its walls adorned with pulsing lines of energy and strange shifting symbols. As they navigated the twisting corridors, they encountered a series of security measures that tested their combined knowledge and abilities. One chamber required the Alpha Vorax to interface directly with an alien console, its consciousness merging with the ancient systems. In another, Dr. Voss deciphered a complex series of equations that unlocked a massive door. The alien engineers proved invaluable, their innate understanding of the precursor technology allowing the team to bypass obstacles that would have stymied humans alone. As they delved deeper into the facility, the ground above them shook with the intensity of the ongoing battle. The Galactic Council peacekeeping fleet had joined the fray, but their outdated tactics proved ineffective against the GEI's advanced weaponry. Recognizing the superiority of the human Vorax-alien alliance, the Council ships fell back to a supporting role, focusing on evacuating civilians from damaged sections of Nexus Prime. Finally, the team reached the heart of the precursor facility. Before them stood a massive energy core, pulsing with power beyond imagination. The Alpha Vorax stepped forward, drawn by an instinct as old as its species. It placed its hands on the core's control systems, its body vibrating as it established a connection that spanned millennia. Through the Alpha Vorax's link, the team began the activation sequence for the planet's long-dormant defenses. Energy surged through the facility, racing along conduits that had lain silent for eons. Above ground, the effects were immediate and awe-inspiring. Massive energy beams erupted from hidden emplacements across Nexus Prime's surface, cutting through the GEI fleet with devastating efficiency. The planet itself seemed to come alive, its land masses shifting to reveal additional weapons platforms and defensive structures. The GEI forces, caught between the combined might of the human Vorax alien alliance and the awakened precursor defenses, began to retreat. However, their commander, his voice filled with desperate rage, issued one final order over an open channel. All ships, concentrate fire on the colony's main power generator. We'll bring down their defenses or die trying. As the remaining GEI ships turned for their final suicidal run, the defenders of Nexus Prime braced themselves for the onslaught. The precursor defense system, not yet fully awakened, surged with untapped potential. The fate of the colony, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance as the two forces hurtled towards their final confrontation. Confrontation. The precursor defense system hummed with energy, its power coursing through the very bedrock of Nexus Prime. Christian Hill's voice crackled over the comm system, his words infused with urgency. All units, prepare for incoming. GEI forces are making their final push. Defend the main power generator at all costs. Captain Marcus Steele's fingers danced across the organic control interface of the transformed superweapon. The ship's tendrils writhed in response, extending outward to form a protective lattice around the power generator. "Zareth," he called out to his alien counterpart, "we need to thin out their numbers before they reach the planet's surface." The alien commander's response came swiftly, his melodious voice tinged with commitment. "Understood, Captain. Initiating synchronized attack pattern." In orbit, Zareth's fleet moved with fluid grace, their ships gliding into formation alongside the superweapon. Streams of radiant energy erupted from their vessels, cutting through the void of space and slicing into the approaching GEI ships. The night sky above Nexus Prime lit up with explosions, debris raining down like fiery meteors. On the ground, Lieutenant Daria Chen barked orders to her mixed squad of humans and enhanced Vorax. "Form a perimeter around the generator complex. Vorax units, I want you on point. Use your enhanced abilities to intercept any GEI troops that make it through our orbital defenses." The Vorax moved with inhuman speed and precision, their bodies blurring as they took up defensive positions. Human soldiers followed in their wake, setting up energy barriers and weapon emplacements to fortify the area. Inside the generator complex, Foreman Jack Harker and Dr. Elias Vance worked feverishly to implement their redundancy protocols. Harker's hands flew over the control panels, sweat beading on his brow. "Rerouting power through the crystalline network now," he called out. "Vance, how's the load distribution looking?" Dr. Vance's eyes darted between multiple holographic displays. "We're green across the board. Even if they take out the main reactor, we should be able to maintain critical systems." As the battle intensified, Dr. Lyra Voss's excited voice cut through the chaos. Christian, I've found something in the data crystal. There's a weapons cache hidden beneath the colony. We might find something there to give us an edge. Without hesitation, Christian dispatched Dr. Kira Nomura and a small team to investigate. Move fast, he instructed. We don't know how long we can hold them off. In orbit, the Galactic Council peacekeeping fleet regrouped, adopting a new strategy. Their ships formed a protective sphere around key sections of Nexus Prime, deflecting incoming fire and allowing the defenders to concentrate their efforts on the most pressing threats. Captain Steele marveled at the superweapon's evolving capabilities. New organic growth sprouted along its hull, forming additional weapon ports and defensive structures. He guided the living ship through the chaos of battle, its tendrils lashing out to ensnare GI vessels and crush them like insects. On the planet's surface, the precursor defenses reached full power. The ground trembled as massive cannons emerged from hidden bunkers, their barrels tracking targets in low orbit. Lances of blinding energy shot skyward, each blast vaporizing GEI ships unlucky enough to be caught in their path. Dr. Nomura's team raced through the underground tunnels, following the directions decoded from the data crystal. They emerged into a vast cavern, its walls lined with racks of sleek, alien weaponry. By the stars, Nomura breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. She grabbed one of the devices, feeling it hum to life in her hands. Get these to the surface now. As the advanced precursor weapons were distributed among the defenders, the tide of battle began to shift. Human and Vorax soldiers wielded energy rifles that cut through GEI armor like paper, while personal shield generators allowed them to weather return fire with ease. The GEI commander's voice boomed across all frequencies, filled with desperate rage. All ships, concentrate fire on Grid Sector 7 Alpha. We punch through there or die trying. Christian watched in horror as a section of the planetary shield began to flicker and waver under the concentrated assault. All available units, converge on that sector, he ordered. We can't let them break through. Captain Steele heard the call and swung the superweapon into position, its organic tendrils stretching to reinforce the failing shield. Zareth ships followed suit, forming a living wall of alien metal and energy. In the precursor control room, the Alpha Vorax's body vibrated with power as it maintained its connection to the ancient systems. Suddenly, its eyes snapped open, glowing with an inner light. A low rumble shook the facility as a hidden sequence activated. Outside, the ground split open near the weakening shield section. A massive cannon, forged by the precursors eons ago, rose from the depths. Its energy signature pulsed in harmony with the Vorax artifact, a testament to the deep connection between the ancient technology and the Vorax species. As the cannon powered up, its barrel aimed at the heart of the GEI fleet, Christian Hill felt a mix of awe and trepidation. The fate of Nexus Prime, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would be decided in the next few moments. The air crackled with tension as defenders and invaders alike paused, all eyes fixed on the ancient weapon. Its power built to levels never before witnessed on the colony, the very fabric of space seeming to warp around its muzzle. Christian's hand hovered over the command console, ready to give the order that would unleash the full might of the precursor technology. As the GEI ships made their final push, he took a deep breath, knowing that whatever happened next would change the course of history forever. Christian's finger hovered over the command console for a split second before he pressed down, unleashing the full might of the precursor cannon. The air itself seemed to vibrate as energy surged through the ancient weapon, culminating in a blinding flash that lit up the sky above Nexus Prime. A concentrated beam of pure energy lanced out from the cannon, cutting through space with terrifying precision. It struck the heart of the GEI fleet, vaporizing the lead ships instantly. The beam continued its path of destruction, leaving nothing but superheated debris in its wake. Captain Marcus Steele watched in awe from the bridge of the transformed superweapon. The organic tendrils of the ship writhed in response to the massive energy discharge, as if sensing the shift in the battle's momentum. "All units, press the advantage," Steele commanded, his voice filled with renewed vigor. "Don't let them regroup." The superweapon's newly formed weapon ports erupted with a barrage of organic projectiles, each one streaking towards the scattering GEI vessels. The remaining enemy ships, caught off guard by the sudden reversal, broke formation and began a chaotic retreat. On the ground, Lieutenant Daria Chen and her mixed squad of humans and enhanced Vorax pushed forward against the GEI ground forces that had managed to breach the colony's defenses. The precursor weapons retrieved by Dr. Kira Nomura proved devastatingly effective, their energy beams cutting through GEI armor with ease. Chen watched as a Vorax soldier moved with inhuman speed, dodging enemy fire before closing in on a GEI trooper. The Vorax's enhanced strength allowed it to tear through the enemy's exosuit without effort. "Keep pushing," Chen shouted, firing her own precursor weapon at a group of retreating GEI soldiers. "We've got them on the run." As the tide of battle turned decisively in favor of the defenders, Christian Hill's comm unit crackled to life. A familiar voice, tinged with a mix of awe and apprehension, filled the air. "This is Ambassador Krell of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Fleet," the voice announced. "In light of recent events, we request an immediate ceasefire and the opportunity to negotiate." Christian exchanged a quick glance with Dr. Lyra Voss, who nodded encouragingly. He keyed his comm unit, his voice steady as he replied, "Ambassador Krell, this is Governor Christian Hill. We're willing to talk, but our defensive positions will remain active. Is that understood?" "Perfectly, Governor Hill," Krell responded. "We'll prepare a delegation immediately." As the sounds of battle began to fade, Foreman Jack Harker and Dr. Elias Vance worked tirelessly to stabilize the colony's power grid. The activation of the ancient defenses had pushed the system to its limits, but Harker had an idea. "Vance, look at these energy readings from the crystalline formations," Harker said, pointing to a holographic display. "If we integrate them into the main generator—" Vance's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "We could create a self-sustaining energy loop. Brilliant, Jack!" The two men set to work, their fingers flying over control panels as they reconfigured the power systems. As the final connections were made, the generator hummed to life with renewed vigor. Energy coursed through the colony, not only powering the defenses but also beginning to repair the damage done to Nexus Prime's ecosystem. Outside the generator complex, a sleek alien ship touched down. Zareth, the leader of the alien fleet that had come to their aid, emerged and made his way towards the hastily prepared negotiation chamber. Christian Hill met him at the entrance, extending his hand in greeting. "Zareth, thank you for joining us. Your assistance was invaluable." The alien commander inclined his head, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the colony's lights. "The alliance between our peoples grows stronger with each challenge we face, Governor Hill. Now we must ensure that strength is recognized by the Galactic Council." As they entered the chamber, Dr. Lyra Voss rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. "Christian, Zareth, I've made another breakthrough with the precursor data crystal," she announced breathlessly. "There's information about a vast network of abandoned precursor outposts scattered throughout the galaxy. Each one could house technology as advanced as what we found here on Nexus Prime." Before either could respond, alarms blared throughout the colony. The Alpha Vorax, still connected to the precursor facility's control systems, had detected an anomaly. A hidden chamber within the underground complex had activated, revealing a holographic message left behind by the precursors. The message flickered to life in the center of the negotiation chamber, showing a being of indescribable form. Its voice, somehow both ancient and immediate, filled the room. "To those who have awakened our legacy, heed this warning. We, the precursors, were forced into hiding by a threat beyond imagination, a force that consumes entire galaxies, that cannot be reasoned with or appeased. We scattered our knowledge and technology across the stars, hoping that those who came after us would be strong enough to face what we could not. Prepare yourselves, for the devourer approaches." As the message faded, leaving the room in stunned silence, the colony's long-range sensors erupted with alerts. A massive energy signature had been detected at the edge of the solar system, far larger than anything encountered before. Christian Hill's mind raced as he processed the implications of this new threat. He turned to face the Galactic Council representatives, who had just entered the chamber, their expressions a mix of confusion and fear. "Ambassador Krell," Christian said, his voice firm and resolute, It seems our negotiations have been overtaken by events. I propose a temporary alliance between all our forces, human, Vorax, Zareth's people, and the Galactic Council. We must stand united against this unknown threat. Krell hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting between the assembled leaders. Finally, he nodded. Agreed, Governor Hill. The Council recognizes the gravity of this situation. We stand with you. As the alliance was forged, Captain Steele's voice came through the comm system. Governor, I'm coordinating with Zareth's fleet and the Council ships to form a defensive perimeter around Nexus Prime. The precursor cannon is recharged and aimed at the approaching energy signature. Throughout the colony, preparations intensified. Dr. Nomura worked to distribute more of the recovered precursor weapons among the Allied forces. Lieutenant Chen organized mixed units of human, Vorax, and alien troops, positioning them at strategic points around Nexus Prime. In the precursor facility, the Alpha Vorax's body pulsed with energy, its consciousness expanding as it interfaced more deeply with the ancient systems. New abilities began to manifest among the enhanced Vorax, their bodies adapting in response to the imminent threat. As the massive energy signature drew closer, Nexus Prime stood ready, its diverse inhabitants united against the approaching storm. The recent victory over the GEI now seemed a mere skirmish compared to the cosmic horror that loomed on the horizon. Yet with the power of the precursors at their command and the strength of their newfound alliances, they prepared to face the unknown, their determination unwavering in the face of the coming darkness. Devourer. The word hung in the air, casting a pall over the assembled leaders. But there was no time to dwell on the implications of the precursor's warning. The colony's sensors blared to life, signaling the approach of an unimaginable threat. Christian Hill's voice cut through the tension. Captain Steele, status report. Governor, long-range scans are detecting a massive energy signature entering the system. Steele replied, his voice taut with urgency. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. Hill nodded grimly. Mobilize all forces. We need every ship, every weapon, and every able body ready for combat. As the Allied fleet took up defensive positions, the transformed superweapon under Captain Steele's command moved to the forefront. Zareth's ships flanked it, their sleek hulls gleaming in the starlight. Behind them, the Galactic Council vessels formed a secondary line, their weapons primed and ready. On Nexus Prime's surface, activity reached a fever pitch. Dr. Lyra Voss and her team worked feverishly, their eyes locked on the stream of data from the precursor crystal. Suddenly, Voss gasped. Christian, we've got it, she exclaimed, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. The entity approaching us? It's called the Omega Construct, an ancient biomechanical being created to consume advanced civilizations. Hill leaned in, his brow furrowed. Any weaknesses? Voss nodded, her eyes gleaming with excitement despite the dire circumstances. The precursors developed a weapon capable of disrupting its cohesion, but it requires an enormous amount of energy to activate. Without hesitation, Hill keyed his comm unit. Harker, I need you to divert all non-essential power to the precursor cannon. Every last jewel we can spare. On it, Governor, Harker's gruff voice replied. But I've got to warn you, we'll be pushing this grid way past its limits. As Harker and his team worked to redirect power, the crystalline formations throughout the colony began to pulse with an intense blue light. Energy coursed through the ancient conduits, feeding into the massive precursor cannon. In orbit, the first tendrils of the Omega construct became visible. A writhing mass of organic and mechanical components stretched across thousands of kilometers, dwarfing even the largest ships in the Allied fleet. Energy tentacles reached out, grasping at the nearest planets and beginning to drain them of resources. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the comm. All ships, engage outer defenses. Concentrate fire on those tendrils. The superweapon surged forward, its organic weapon ports erupting with a barrage of projectiles. They streaked towards the construct, burrowing into its surface and causing localized disruptions. Zareth's fleet followed suit, their advanced energy weapons creating temporary breaches in the entity's regenerating outer layer. On the ground, Lieutenant Chen coordinated the colony's defenses. Squad leaders, report in. I want a status update on all precursor weapon distributions. As Chen received confirmations from her mixed units of humans, enhanced Vorax and Zarath's troops, Dr. Nomura burst into the command center, clutching a strange device. "Lieutenant, I found something," Nomura panted, holding up the artifact. "It's an amplifier for the neural link between the Vorax and the precursor tech." Chen's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "Get that to the Alpha Vorax now!" As Nomura rushed to connect the device, the Omega construct made its move. A massive tendril of energy lashed out towards Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council ships moved to intercept, several vessels disintegrating as they absorbed the brunt of the attack. The remaining energy struck the planet's atmosphere, causing widespread electromagnetic disturbances. Alarms blared throughout the colony as settlement after settlement reported damage. In the power distribution center, Harker and Vance fought to maintain the energy flow to the precursor cannon. "Reroute through the secondary couplings," Harker shouted over the sound of overloading circuits. "We can't lose that cannon." As the battle raged in space, Nomura connected the amplification device to the Alpha Vorax. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Alpha's consciousness expanded, linking with every piece of precursor technology on Nexus Prime. Suddenly, the colony's defenses moved with newfound precision and coordination. The precursor cannon hummed with power, reaching full charge. The Alpha Vorax, its mind now spanning the entire defensive network, initiated the firing sequence. A blinding beam of energy erupted from the cannon, cutting through space and striking the construct's core. The impact sent a massive shockwave rippling through the Omega construct's body. Its outer layers began to disintegrate, revealing a pulsating central nucleus. Captain Steele, seizing the opportunity, directed the transformed superweapon to launch a concentrated assault on the exposed core. But the construct was far from defeated. As its outer shell crumbled, it released swarms of smaller biomechanical units. Thousands of fighter-sized entities descended towards Nexus Prime, threatening to overwhelm the planet's defenses. Lieutenant Chen's voice rang out over the comm channels. "All ground units, prepare for atmospheric engagement. Use the precursor weapons. They're our best shot against these things." As the swarms entered Nexus Prime's atmosphere, the sky lit up with energy, weapon fire. The precursor weapons proved devastatingly effective, disintegrating the biomechanical units on contact. But for every unit destroyed, dozens more took its place. In a bold strategy, Christian Hill gave the order. "Activate all dormant precursor technology, everything we've got." Across the planet's surface, ancient defense turrets emerged from hidden bunkers. They joined the fray, adding their firepower to the desperate battle against the Omega construct's swarms. As the conflict reached its zenith, the precursor cannon prepared for a second shot. The transformed superweapon pressed its attack on the construct's exposed core, and on the ground, the Allied forces fought wave after wave of biomechanical invaders. The fate of Nexus Prime, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The battle was a long way to go, and the ultimate outcome remained uncertain. But in this moment, united against a common threat, the disparate forces of humans, Vorax, and their newfound allies fought on, determined to save not just their world, but all worlds from the ancient horror that threatened to consume them all. The precursor cannon hummed with an intensity that made the air itself vibrate. As the final preparations were made, Christian Hill's voice rang out over the comm system. "This is it. Everything we've got, right now." The cannon erupted with a blinding beam of energy, so bright that it outshone Nexus Prime's sun for a brief moment. The concentrated force of the blast struck the Omega construct's exposed core with unprecedented power, amplified by the collective consciousness of the enhanced Vorax. Captain Marcus Steele, aboard the transformed superweapon, saw his opportunity. "All systems, full power to offensive capabilities," he commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. The organic tendrils of the ship extended to their maximum reach, penetrating deep into the construct's weakened body. Steele's fingers flew over the controls, initiating a daring maneuver. "Redirecting precursor cannon energy through our systems," he reported, channeling directly into the construct's nucleus. On the surface of Nexus Prime, Lieutenant Daria Chen led a desperate charge against the swarms of biomechanical units raining down from the sky. Enhanced Vorax moved with inhuman speed and precision, their newly augmented abilities allowing them to tear through the invaders with ease. "Keep pushing," Chen shouted, her voice barely audible over the din of battle. "We can't let a single one of these things reach the colony." Zareth's ships swooped overhead, their sleek hulls gleaming as they provided crucial air support. Energy weapons lanced out from their vessels, carving swaths through the densest concentrations of enemy units. In the colony's command center, Christian Hill made a decision that would alter the course of the battle. "Dr. Nomura," he called out, "connect me to the neural amplification device, now." Nomura's eyes widened. "Governor, the risks—" "We don't have time to debate this," Hill cut her off. "Do it." As Nomura worked to connect Hill to the device, the neural link surged to life. Hill gasped as his consciousness expanded, suddenly aware of every piece of precursor technology on Nexus Prime. The flood of information was overwhelming, but among the chaos, he found clarity. "Council ships, target coordinates, 227 by 384, Hill commanded, his enhanced awareness allowing him to pinpoint weaknesses in the construct's structure. "Zareth, focus your energy weapons on these specific points. We need to disrupt its regenerative capabilities." In orbit, the transformed superweapon underwent a startling metamorphosis. As it remained connected to the construct's core, organic components of the ship began to merge with the entity's biomechanical structure. Steele's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with a mix of awe and persistence. "Control, the ship is integrating with the construct. I'm going to accelerate the process. We might be able to shut it down from the inside." Hill's enhanced mind processed the implications instantly. "Do it, Captain. We'll support you from here." As Steele's ship fully merged with the Omega construct, creating a hybrid entity under his control, the massive being's movements became erratic. Energy tendrils that had been grasping at nearby planets began to retract, its cohesion failing. On the ground, Foreman Jack Harker's voice came through, strained and urgent. "Governor, we're pushing the grid way past its limits. I don't know how much longer we can keep this up." "Just a little more, Jack," Hill responded, his mind racing with calculations and possibilities. "We need every joule for one final shot." The precursor cannon began to charge again, drawing power from every corner of the colony. Crystalline formations pulsed in sync, their blue glow intensifying to a blinding white. Hill felt the collective consciousness of every Vorax on Nexus Prime, channeling into the weapon through his neural link. The power buildup was unlike anything he had ever experienced, threatening to overwhelm his senses. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. Hill's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of an entire world's hope. The cannon fired its ultimate shot, a beam of pure energy that seemed to bend space itself. It struck the faltering Omega construct dead center, penetrating its core and setting off a chain reaction of explosions throughout its massive body. "All ships, evasive maneuvers!" Hill shouted, his enhanced awareness allowing him to predict the impending shockwave. Steele's hybrid ship detached from the disintegrating construct moments before the final detonation. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but its visual impact was undeniable. For a brief moment, it seemed as if a new star had been born in the Nexus Prime system. As the shockwave approached, Zareth's ships created energy shields, protecting the more vulnerable vessels in the Allied fleet. On the planet's surface, the enhanced Vorax used their abilities to strengthen the colony's defenses, bracing for impact. The wave hit with tremendous force, but Nexus Prime held. As the blinding light faded and the debris settled, an eerie calm descended upon the battlefield. The remains of the Omega construct drifted harmlessly through space, its threat to the galaxy finally neutralized. In the command center, Hill disconnected from the neural amplification device, his knees going weak from the experience. He stumbled, caught by Dr. Nomura before he could fall. Did we do it?" Hill asked, his voice hoarse. Nomura nodded, a rare smile breaking across her face. "We did it, Governor. The construct is destroyed." As the realization of their victory began to sink in, reports started flooding in from across the colony and the fleet. The transformed superweapon, piloted by a weary but triumphant Captain Steele, made its way back to Nexus Prime's orbit, its organic components pulsing with residual energy from the construct. On the ground, Lieutenant Chen coordinated the enhanced Vorax in clearing out the last of the biomechanical units. The Predators moved with newfound purpose, their abilities permanently augmented by the intense battle and their deep connection to the precursor technology. As the immediate danger passed, Hill's mind turned to the future. The battle was won, but its implications were only beginning to unfold. Nexus Prime had not only survived, but had emerged as a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. Zareth's ship was the first to land, the alien leader striding out to meet Hill. Behind him, Galactic Council representatives followed, their expressions a mix of awe and wariness. "It seems," Zareth said, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the still-glowing precursor technology scattered around the landing pad, "that we have much to discuss, Governor Hill." Hill nodded, straightening his posture despite his exhaustion. "Indeed we do," he replied, gesturing towards the colony's main conference room. "I believe it's time to redefine our place in the galaxy." As they walked, Hill couldn't help but marvel at the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. What had begun as a shocking alliance between humans and the apex predators of Nexus Prime had evolved into something far greater, a force capable of facing even the most ancient and terrifying threats to galactic peace. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since arriving on this alien world, Hill felt a sense of true optimism. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that the people of Nexus Prime, human and Vorax alike, were ready to face them together.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.